Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and I have two guests with me. I've got Katie and Travis from Cutscenes.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back, both of you. Excited to have you both on the podcast to talk about Soma.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So excited.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm excited to talk about this game.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited having this come together. I guess before we jump into Soma, would one of you want to tell people about Cutscenes if they don't know?
Are you making me do it?
I
no.
totally am. Yes, you do it.
Okay, so Cutscenes is a seasonal podcast where we watch video game related movies and TV. It's hosted by myself, Katie, and our friend Jacob McCourt, who has been on episodes of this podcast and also hosts the Left Behind Game Club. So the three of us kind of get together. We have a good time chatting about these mostly terrible movies. Sometimes there's really good ones.
Some of them are fine.
Some of them are fine. And then, it's just a really great time. We just have a lot of fun with it. So
Yeah, it's kind of like dive in, but it's not too serious. You know, we like you said, we like to have a good time, and we're just
try
having
to have fun with it.
But we dive in a little bit and kind of try to get into it. But and sometimes we have some good discussions, some debates, some disagreements. But
About what's good and what's bad.
Well, yeah, God, who knows? Who knows anymore? But we've been friends for a long time, so we can kind of like dig into each other pretty good. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Fully agree. Super fun show. Also, as mentioned, Katie and Travis have both been on this show, and Jacob has as well. They're in the backlog. Go check them out if you want more of us talking games. So, I guess with that, we can dive into Soma. Would one of you want to grab the description for that game?
Yeah, I can do it. So here we go. Description of Soma. The radio is dead. Food is running out, and the machines have started to think they are people. Underwater facility Pathos 2 has suffered an intolerable isolation, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. What can be done? What makes sense? What is left to fight for? Enter the world of Soma and face horrors buried deep beneath the ocean waves. Delve through locked terminals and secret documents to uncover the truth behind the chaos. Seek out the last remaining inhabitants and take part in the events that will ultimately shape the fate of the station. But be careful. Danger lurks in every corner. Corrupted humans, twisted creatures, insane robots, and even an inscrutable, omnipresent AI. You will need to figure out how to deal with each one of them. Just remember, there's no fighting back. Either you outsmart your enemies, or you get ready to run.
Awesome. I'd say that's a pretty fair description for this game for sure. Little background on the game. It's developed by Frictional Games, who are mostly known for the Amnesia series. I think there's two of those games, and then Soma's really their other game. That's the only other game they've done outside of the series. So all horror stuff, that's sort of what they do. And I guess lastly, before we dive into a recap and get into the nitty-gritty of the game, we wanted to take a little time to share some non-spoiler thoughts on the game and, I don't know, give you some ideas if this game is for you or not, maybe. I guess one thing from the description that's important to pull out is this is, I guess, your standard like survival horror kind of game. You can't fight. You're not like super fast. There's no, you basically have to kind of endure this and not get killed. It's more or less how that is played. However, with that, they do offer two game modes. You can play a safe mode, so to speak, where the monsters are still scary. They're still there. They just can't kill you. So you have that, or you can play the normal way where you can be killed and it'll, send you back and have to restart from a checkpoint, I guess. So I guess that's one thing to set the stage. For me, I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to horror. So I went safe mode all the way. I was worried about getting partway through the game and getting too scared and getting stuck. So I played safe mode. That was how I did it. I don't know what either of you did for that.
Yeah, I was the exact same way. I stared at that loading screen for a very long time and I thought about it and I was like, do I attempt to do this in normal? And I really thought about it and I was like, I don't know, because even knowing me and like even stealth portions of games in general, I'll have a lot of I'll sit in like the tall grasses in Horizon for a very long time before I have to like make my move. And I'm like, I kind of got a deadline. I got to finish this game. And I think that's ultimately what made me decide to do safe mode. Also, I am a big wuss as well. And I like this game was creepy and scary enough for me on safe mode alone. I'm very happy with my decision. But I would say like because I chose safe mode, it felt less survivor horror and more like what's that type of game? It's more like a walking sim. Like, you know, like you really are just like uncovering the stories as you go, and you're figuring out little puzzles and doing little fetch quests and stuff. But it's really not. There's not a lot of like having to hide because really nothing can hurt you. But then again, I still hid. Like let's be fair, I still hid, even though like nothing could hurt me. I was like, I'm gonna hide behind this thing anyways. So, but yeah, so it that's kind of the kind of the vibe that I had from it. It was like sci-fi horror story, and that's like something I'm super interested in. So
yeah, so I went with the normal mode.
Oh wow! You know
normal.
what? I kind of figured you're a masochist. Yes. You would like.
I am. I'm a total masochist. Yes, I am. You know me too well. So, you know what? I'll use this opportunity to kind of get into the gameplay since it's not spoilery at all. So, yes, I played on normal mode. An issue of mine was that you cannot switch in between mid-game, normal, and safe mode. Like, it is either you are picking one or the other through the entire game. And there was a point in the game where I was like, I just don't want to do this. Like, I don't have it in me to get through this environment and run out and get away from this monster. Like, it just at the moment. And also I want to explore the environment a little bit more. Like, there's pockets where you can find out a lot of stuff, and it makes it very difficult. These monsters are persistent. My God, it is very difficult to get away from them. So it's like, no, I'm not going to go into that corner to find this little bit of lore because no, this thing's going to kill me. So it kind of cuts down on the lore building, which to me is the most interesting part of Soma, because to me, the gameplay isn't that great. Like, honestly, I didn't enjoy actually playing this game. Like, throughout the whole game, I was like, I gotta play Soma. But at the end of the game, with everything that it gave me, I was really happy I played it. Like, I thought it was so interesting, and I was like, oh man, this discussion is gonna be fantastic. I want to talk to these two people about this game because it's really fascinating. But the actual act of playing it with the monsters trying to kill me was like, this isn't fun. Like, none of this was fun at all.
Too scary.
It's scary. It's scary. The stealth isn't like that well built, I feel like. Like, I would kind of hide in a corner, and like you kind of have to hope that they kill you, or they don't. Like, you have to hope that they don't kill you. And you're kind of just relying on that because you can't look at them. I mean, I think we'll get into it, but so yeah, the gameplay to me was a little bit lacking, but the story was interesting. So I was on the fence about it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Just with like Travis compared it to a walking sim. That's how it felt to me, or being at like a haunted house almost, since I couldn't get killed by the bad guys. And I found out too, like you said, Katie, that you can't switch partway through, because I started the game on regular and didn't get very far and was like, maybe I want to be able to change this, and I couldn't. And I was like, all right, I don't want to get stuck partway through and, you know, run into something scary like you, where I'm like, I don't have this in me right now. So I was like, I'll just start over on safe just to run it that way so that I don't get stressed out partway through. But yeah, I thought the scares worked. I agree though, gameplay wise, it made me wonder if I like walking sims, but I don't know if I would like survival horror full out. Like, I think I'd want to be able to fight or actually run, but instead it seemed like it was just sit down quietly, and that's how they won't see you or whatever, and that's not great.
Yeah, I thought this game would be more interesting as a walking sim without the monsters. I don't think that the monsters added that much to the gameplay because it wasn't executed that well. I liked the creepy ambiance, and I liked how scary it was, which you can totally do that without having monsters. Like, to me, Gone Home is a walking sim that is creepy, and you feel unsettled the whole time, but there's no monsters. Whereas I feel like this could have been a scarier version of Gone Home, where I could like learn all the lore and find out all the things, and it didn't need the monsters to me. That was kind of my issue with the game.
Yeah, I found like I liked the monsters in safe mode. Like it added to the ambiance.
I could see that.
It added, and like their behaviors were different than what you would anticipate, but just as creepy. And like they would still like make noises, and they added to that atmosphere and that world. If it was a barren world with no monsters, I think it would have felt, I think, a little too barren. I think I like the idea that they're, especially given, I mean, we won't get into it yet, but like what this thing is that is taken over this location, it's not, it makes sense that there would be things kind of walking around, right? So I liked that there was monsters in my safe mode, and I liked that they couldn't kill me. They just made me very scared.
Yeah. I'm not a game dev, but I feel like they could have accomplished scares without there being a physical monster, because at the beginning of the game I was more scared before I saw any of the robots. Like I was like, oh my God, I was terrified. I was barely moving. I was like creeping around each room. Like, what is going to jump out at me? I don't know what's going to happen. And then once I saw the first robot and I saw him walking around the room and like looking for me, I was like, oh, it's not that scary. It was more just like more annoying that I had to work my way around this robot and that he might see me, and like the way the stealth mechanics works isn't that great. Like it's not that well executed. So I found the robots more annoying in normal mode than I found them scary. Whereas I found just the environment at the beginning extremely terrifying.
I think I wonder if this was something that would maybe be different with normal versus safe mode. But as I went, I noticed how each robot was kind of different. And so some were scarier in different ways. Like, oh, this one's really big, but he can't see that well. So if you just duck, or, this one will hover around. Or I don't know if this happened to you, Travis, when you played, but I had a couple times where I got attacked in safe mode still. And the screen turned red to let me know you're getting attacked, like get out kind of thing. And it was nice to be like, okay, I think I'm getting a lot of the experience without the things that were probably annoying for Katie.
Yeah, I think I got the same thing. It wasn't annoying for me. They were just, I was scared enough that I wouldn't try to interact with the monsters too much. You know what I mean? I kind of didn't want to break the illusion. I like let myself be ignorant to the fact that they can't hurt me. And I just like tried to get myself immersed into the world. And I acted as if they could still hurt me, and it worked very effectively for me, I found. Just them not being able to hurt me, but at least being present in some areas, and I don't know, just made some like areas were just better because there was like a presence as opposed to there being nothing, right?
There's a pressure while you're walking around this environment and looking up lore pieces, as opposed to if you just had free reign and you feel like there's zero pressure whatsoever. Yeah. I could totally understand that.
Yeah.
I only had one other non-spoiler thought, and we've sort of hit on it anyway, but I didn't know anything about this game going in, and so as Katie had mentioned, as you find out about the world, you discover things, blah, blah, blah. I got way more out of this game than I thought I would. I thought I was mostly going to try to not be that scared. And like you said, the lore was really cool, like the different things you find out. And I feel like I'm excited to actually talk about those things. But that made this game way more of I would recommend this to people because everything that's in there is cool. And based on this discussion, maybe I'd tell them to play safe mode based on your experience and based on mine of enjoying safe mode.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. As far as the actual story, I ended up feeling like I got a lot out of it. Like I got way more out of it than I thought I would, especially within the first third. I was like, I'm just annoyed by a lot of this, a lot of what I'm playing. And then a lot of the things that crop up as far as the story and like philosophical decisions that you have to make and like ethical decisions that you have to make and like how you're it kind of presents things to you that kind of shift your perspective in some ways or another that I found really, really interesting in a way that not a lot of games do. So I'd highly recommend playing the game. I just don't know if, like I said, the gameplay isn't exact. It's not fun. Like, it didn't captivate me in certain ways. Even like with the puzzles weren't super interesting. Like, I don't know if there weren't enough of them or if they weren't that interesting, where I'm like, you could have put more puzzles in there and less me trying to hide from, like, ineffectively hiding from robots. And that would have maybe made it more enjoyable. Like, I didn't enjoy the experience, but I got a lot out of it. And I'm not I'm happy that I played it for sure. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But I would recommend it to most people. Like most people who play a lot of games, I would definitely recommend it. Normal or safe, I don't know. It depends on the person, but for sure.
Yeah, and I had I knew nothing about this game, and that was intentional because I don't know how I knew that I wanted to play this game, and I don't know.
I mean, it's highly regarded. A lot of people talk about it
Yeah.
very highly as a very interesting game. And yeah, I didn't know much about it either at all.
I knew nothing, but I also like these kind of sci-fi things is like right up my alley.
Yeah,
like
that's your shit.
The top. It really is. Like, it's right up my alley of things that I want to consume. And like, I knew it was a good story. I knew that. I think I might have listened to the Left Behind Game Club's episode on it, but at the time I don't think I knew anything about it at the time. But even then, I don't remember that episode either. So it's like I had no clue about the story or anything going in, just knowing that I wanted to play it, and I was not disappointed at all. I loved my experience with it, and I would like super recommend it if anyone was interested in playing it. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's more or less my non-spoiler thoughts. Do you guys have anything else you'd want to share before we dive in?
no, I want to spoil things.
Yeah, I kind of want to get into it. I think that's about it for me.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We'll jump into spoilers then. So the game begins, and you've got Simon Jarrett getting ready to go to a visit with a doctor for his brain because he was in a car accident with his friend or girlfriend or coworker or maybe all three, and she died. And he has a pretty bad brain injury and is said to have like a small amount of time to live. You have a couple months or something like that. So the game begins with you kind of getting used to the controllers. You go around his house. You find some liquid to drink that is going to be useful for his brain scan he'll have later. That will make it, I guess, I don't know, easier to see organs or something. I don't know.
Not a doctor.
Yeah, not a doctor. That actually also, that's going to happen a lot, is I'm going to explain things badly and compare them to things that I know about. So that's going to happen a lot in this game because since it's sci-fi, I will say it's like this, kind of. Yeah. And you guys may disagree. Listeners may disagree. That's my own fault. Don't hold Soma to that. So then, really, the next thing that happens in this kind of introduction is Simon does go to Dr. Munchi's office, who he has the brain scan with. He gets there, and the office is getting remodeled, so no one's there. There's not a front desk clerk, nothing. And so he has to find his way actually in to the office. He reads some notebooks and then finds out the code to be able to get inside. And when he gets in there, you have a chance to talk to Dr. Munchie about the surgery. You ask him some questions, but one of the first things that happened that stood out to me is you say, "Oh, Dr. Munchie, what about this?" And he's like, "Actually, it's just Mister. Hopefully this will get me my PhD." And I was like, what the fuck? I'm not getting this. Like, I'm leaving. That's how I felt, but I knew the game wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah. I heard that line too, and I was just like, uh-oh, this is not going to end well.
I didn't even notice that. Honestly,
yeah, he's not a doctor.
The second I got the code and opened the door and it made that doom sound when you opened that first door, and I was like, oh, this is creepy and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think I was too focused on that to notice this Mr. Munchie business.
The opening stuff was just as creepy. I was so unsettled by just going into an office building.
That's the thing. The unknown is just as creepy as the known, or
yes.
more creepy than the known, rather. Which is why when you see the robot and you're like, oh, okay, that's what's hunting me. Whereas at the beginning, you're like, something's going to happen and I don't know what it is and I don't like it. And it's creepy.
Very scary. I did not like, I mean, and I get why you had all that stuff to give you like the preamble before the actual game takes off, and you get the opportunity to kind of get the controls and everything like that, but still very scary. Like, even if it was super basic.
Yeah, I agree. I had kind of the same creep out in that of, because again, I didn't know anything about this game. I didn't know sci-fi would even come into this. So I was like, all right, is there going to be like an axe murderer in here and I'm going to have to run around this building? Like, I don't know. Like, anything was possible at that moment.
Yeah.
Also, I found out that they're Canadian, so I imagine that Jacob liked that in the Left Behind Game Club episode. I bet he shouted that out. Yeah.
It's Toronto.
Yeah.
I love that. Toronto or nah. Check out some cutscenes episodes for the reference. We say Toronto or nah a lot.
Yeah. So ultimately, Simon gets this brain scan. He sits down in the chair. He has like a thing go over his head for, I guess, a machine that does the MRI or whatever. Does a brain scan, and then wakes up, and he is in a new location. Ultimate, what the fuck's going on? Feel like, did I get transported to a new dimension? Like, what's going on? And you get up, and it's like a totally metal place. I thought it looked like a spaceship. Like, it felt like you were, again, another comparison, but like you were in the movie Alien or something. Like, you woke up on that ship.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, what the fuck's going on? Who's here? Why am I here? What the fuck did Munchie do? Like, super creepy, just jolt of things. Didn't expect to be here at all.
Yeah. So the initial thing was the premise that they're going to make a copy, like a digital copy of your brain, so that they can run simulations on it and then basically figure out what is going on with your brain and then know what kind of treatments that they can make to help heal it or help it keep it from doing whatever it's going to do because it's injured. So my initial thought was that right away was like, oh, I thought that I was the simulation brain. Like right away I was like, oh,
whoa.
Like, because I had heard, the only thing I heard about this game was basically that it played on a lot of things about what makes you human and what it doesn't. And if they bring your consciousness to another place, are you still you? So my initial thought was like, oh, I am my copy of my brain. And they're throwing they're saying they were going to throw stimuli at it and see how it reacts and use that to do a thing. So I was like, oh, I am now the copy of my brain and you are just throwing stimuli and none of this is real, which later we find out that is not the case. But that was my initial thought, was like, oh, this is stimuli. Like, this is all just like make believe things that they're doing to me to try and get information. But yeah, it was messed up. I was terrified. I was like, oh God, that was one of the scariest parts of the whole game, because you don't know what's going on and you don't know what's going to come at you. And the unknown is the most terrifying thing of anything.
Yeah, once you wake up in that like completely dark metal room, I did not want to get up off the chair. I was like, no, I'm safe in this chair.
I'll just stay right here.
I'll just stay right here.
Yeah, it's
fine. I didn't know. I didn't have initial thoughts. At first, I thought to myself, for some reason, like I've either been transported to like either the future or something. Like I kind of figured, for some reason, I thought my initial reaction was, I'm still me. I'm in the same chair, and I've been in this same chair for hundreds of years or something like that. But then once you get out of the room and you start exploring, you see the chair and you're like, okay, this isn't the same chair.
It's a different
like
place.
It's a different place. Like
it's a different layout.
I quickly like abandoned that like line of thought, but that was my first kind of initial thing was, okay, I've moved through time in some way and I just don't understand how that makes sense. But that room is scary. Like there's like a little red light that you have to go to like turn on the lights, and I just did not like that. And I like, and then you're trying to figure your way out of this room, and it's just super creepy. It's just so unsettling. From going from like basic office furniture stuff that was already unsettled to then this, and not really wanting to leave the comfort of even this metal room. Like I did not want to leave that room.
I thought the sound design was excellent as far as making you just unsettled the entire time, because you're hearing these creaks and like bangs of like this machinery happening around you, and you're going like, oh, what's that? And it's like you could place it, because I played it with headphones for the first third, and then I gave up on that because it was too scary. But it was like, oh, something's over here, oh, something's over there, and you were just like unsettled the entire time, because all this sound is very eerie and making you think that something's creeping up on you at all times, even if it's not.
I totally agree. I felt scared every time you had to do a thing, and when you get out of this room, you had to throw something at the window to break it, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Then someone could get in.
Yeah, someone's gonna hear me too.
Yeah, someone will hear me. Someone will be able to get in. Then I should stay here. This is where I got out of the room, but then this was shortly after where I switched to safe mode, and I was like, never mind. I'm not too deep in. Abandoned ship. Never mind. Like, I'm too scared. So I didn't even meet anyone bad yet, but the creepiness factor set in so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was more on the line with Travis. I thought I got transported as a person. I didn't have the mind stuff in my mind at all yet. So from here, you do leave the room once we're brave enough. And when you do, you end up finding this device that's called an Omni tool, which I described as a Game Boy mixed with a phone that is used to access the computer system. It can do a lot of things. It can act as like a key. You can plug it into workstations. It will bring up the stuff on there to allow you to, make different functions around the station work. It's really a super cool tool and an ultimate, useful thing that they have going on. So you end up picking one up and you're like, oh, okay, this will let me get around, basically. So you use that. As you run around with the Omni tool, you end up making it to a communication station where you talk on the radio to a woman named Catherine, who is like, oh, I'm over here at this nearby sector. If you meet up with me, we could talk and, be able to figure out what's going on. And, of course, us not knowing about any people, and then we've got someone on the other line. We're like, yes, oh my God, we could really use a person. So Simon goes kind of full on after that.
Yeah, that was kind of like, oh, there is a person. I'm talking to somebody else who seems to have a slightly better grasp on what is going on than I do. So there was a comfort in being not entirely alone, even though I didn't trust Catherine. I was like, I don't know who you are, and I don't know if you're going to try and kill me. I don't know what's going on. But at least I'm talking to someone, and there's another person, and they're telling me where to go. So I'm going to go there, because that feels better than not knowing anything. So yeah, no, it felt slightly better once that happened.
It was also nice to talk to Catherine once you finally spoke to her, because like you said, she knows what's going on, but literally your previous interactions with things that speak before this, because I think, do you not interact, I think Carl and Amy are two people before this, I believe.
I think you might be right. I think you're right.
I think you see Carl, because at least in my notes here, I have it written in that you interact with Carl and then you interact with Amy. And then I don't know if Catherine you maybe speak with Catherine around that same time, but at least you have the impression that Catherine is alive and human and knows what's going on. When you find Carl, he's it's a man's voice in a robot, on the ground, and it's extremely unsettling.
Because is that the first instance of where you can kind of, there's an action where you can kind of get information or an imprint from someone who is dead or gone or not present. And then you can kind of hear their thoughts or what they're saying, basically. Was that Carl and Amy?
So you get that stuff, I think, around the same time. Carl was a robot that was, he was pinned to some sort of conveyor belt. And he he's like pinned to the conveyor belt, and you can go up to him, and there's actually like a text bubble, and you can speak with him.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. He's just full out talking. He's not like
and he's just like,
dead.
get a medic. Like, I'm in pain. Get a medic. Like, can't you see? And he's like, and Simon's like, you're a robot. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I have arms and legs, and I'm clearly a human. Just like, go get a medic. Go get help. Because you needed to unlock a door to get to the communications area so that you could actually speak with Catherine. And one of the first things that you have to do is to just like, when you're dealing with Carl, there's 2 different methods of how you can unlock this door, because you have to redirect power. And in order to get to Catherine, you have to either turn off the power and it causes like Carl to get electrocuted, and he's screaming in pain, and he's saying like, turn it off, like he's screaming in pain. And you can use that to either unlock the door to go, or if you chose an alternate route that was a little farther, you actually completely turn off the power entirely, and that causes Carl just to straight up die.
I thought I did, because I kind of all blends together, but I thought what I did was that did I unplug Amy? Was that before? Or
Amy
after?
was after this.
Oh,
Amy was after this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Carl just screamed.
You may have missed
Terrible
Carl. Like, I think Carl could be missable.
I don't remember
Like,
Carl. I didn't make any notes about Carl.
He might have. He was like my first real interaction with a speaking person, and it was the first indication of like, there's a guy trapped in this robot. Like, and I was
Amy
thinking to myself,
was my first instance of that.
Oh, okay.
I
I
don't remember Carl.
You may have, because there was 2 ways of dealing with it. If you went into the room where Carl was, then you could hear him say like, "Hey, I need help," like whatever. And there's a switch nearby that you can flick, and then it starts zapping him, and he's screaming. And so I turned it off, and I go back to him, and I'm like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "I'm so sorry. I think I hit a wrong switch." And then you can apologize and turn it off and go. But then you might have gone straight to the other power source and turned it off entirely, and then he dies.
Oh.
It turns him off, which then opens the door.
I said, I don't recall him.
So that's the thing. So Carl was my first instance of like, there's something going on here. And it kind of also gave you the, because I think he might have talked about the idea of like the pilot chairs being used to maneuver things around. So like, essentially, I think the people working in this station were, they could sit in a pilot seat, put on like a little helmet, and then they could use, they kind of link up with robots to be able to do the tasks that they needed to do around the station. And my initial thought was, oh, something went wrong, and he is now permanently in this robot.
Oh, see, I missed that
But
entirely.
Yeah. I think it's something that can be skippable if you didn't go into that room where you need to go. But then you also find Carl's dead body, like not that far, because you have to get like a keypad to unlock something or other. It's one of the tasks or whatever. But that's also the first instance of everyone's wearing like little like, I don't know, they're like Bluetooth headphone things to their ears, and essentially like you can data mine those to get their last moments like recorded, and that's what you were talking about, the kind of data buffer thing. I just went over a lot of stuff.
No, that's great. Yeah, Carl was my first one too, because I had him scream, and so that's how, it's pretty memorable, because you're like, what the hell is happening? Like,
yeah.
This is frightening. And then Amy is inside the comm station. You can unplug her, right?
Yes.
Which I did that because I was like, it let me do it, so I thought I was supposed to, and then I did it, and I was like,
had to.
Maybe you have to for this one. Do you remember, Travis?
So there was 2 plugs for Amy, and I unplugged one, and she went no, and was like, not like as I talked to her a little bit first, and like also very creepy. She's like hooked up to like this robotic lung that's like breathing for her, and she's sitting on like a pile of goop, and it's very unsettling. And you can unplug one, and she says no. And then she's like, I just want to go home, and then I left her. Like, I actually didn't unplug the second one, but she was alive, but she was more or less like kind of her eyes were rolling back and she wasn't all there when I left her. But I thought maybe there's a chance I can come back and save her later. And that didn't happen.
I totally unplugged the second one, and then it was like, oh, and then she's like, oh, and she just made dying sounds, and she clearly died. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I should have done that. No, I feel really bad now. I don't know how I feel, but yeah, where she just seems to be hooked up to like a life, like what's the word I'm looking for? Not life preservation, but like life support. Like she seems to be hooked up to like life support, and you just basically unplugged her. But she's screaming at you, "Don't do it!" And I was like, "But I need to get to the comm station, and you're kind of in the way." And I felt terrible because I just unplugged her, and then she died. And then I was like, "Oh, this place is rough. This is a rough place. Bad things happen here."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same thing. I it's like, this is a rough place. I killed you. I didn't mean to necessarily. Like, I didn't quite know. Because something, we didn't mention this on the gameplay, but something that's kind of weird in this game, or at least I thought it was weird, was it's not very clear about what things you can pick up that matter or not. Like, there's a lot of shit you can just pick up and throw for no reason, and then there's other things you're supposed to do. So when I unplugged her, I was just like, it's an item I can touch. Maybe I'm supposed to do this. Like, maybe I plug the thing from her into the comm station or something, and then it was like, oh, I just killed you. Shit. So that was something that was kind of weird in this game as to what matters. So there were a few times where, as I was doing stuff, I'd get kind of lost as to like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? So I'd have to go check a walkthrough and be like, what am I supposed to do in this room? I know I'm supposed to do something here, but I don't get it. So I don't know if I'm dumb, but that was something that happened for me.
No, I found like I was early on grabbing a lot of things, like picking up a lot of stuff, thinking I needed to do things with it. And then I quickly realized a lot of it was just items that you could interact with. I was opening up a lot of lockers, and I still opened up a lot of lockers along my way because I wanted to see like if there was notes or anything inside of them, or opening up drawers. But a lot of the time it was kind of pointless. You would open a drawer and there'd just be junk in it, and then you would pick it up and you could put it down. But I realized I slowly stopped because I was just like, well, I'm not really getting anywhere with picking up all these random things, and I just kind of looked for the ones that seemed important, or a different interactable image kind of came up or something.
Yeah, for sure. I found that, your symbol that shows up while you're hovering kind of your cursor over certain items will be different if it seems more meaningful. But as far as like drawers and lockers, like 90% of the time, there was nothing in there, which kind of made it feel, not empty, but like a little bit. Like certain rooms, you'd be like, oh, there's nothing in here. And it's like sometimes you weren't rewarded for looking through a room often enough that I was like, well, I won't look through a lot of these rooms because often enough it wasn't rewarding. Whereas I feel like when things are like springs to mind is like Control. You like look around a room, you will find something in that room that is either funny or interesting or just worth your time. Whereas I found some of these rooms were not worth my time. Even like some like computers, you log in and there'd be like logs. It'd be like, so-and-so logged in at this time and so-and-so logged in at this time. And I'm sure if you like deep dove into it and you were like hardcore about that lore, you'd be like, oh, because so-and-so logged in before so-and-so, that means something. But I did not have the energy to dive that deep. Where I'm like, no, you got to give me something. Like, you got to give me something that like seems interesting or seems kind of funny or something. Like, I just being like, so-and-so popped in at this time and so-and-so popped in at this time. Like, that might mean something. I don't know. Maybe the internet will be like, you're wrong. That means a lot. But like, it didn't seem to mean anything to me.
Yeah, if I was going to interact with a computer, I would want there to be something worth me interacting with.
Absolutely.
Might as well just have the screen just flicker.
Whereas like
if I'm not going to learn something.
A third of them didn't seem to offer me much at all.
Yeah. I like did a decent amount of like rifling through, and I went through every computer because I kind of made the assumption that every computer was going to have something of importance. And sometimes it was just like logs in and out, and like you said, it could be important if I was like and I'm sure there was some stuff, but I really liked it when there was like audio logs or like a map or like something about the room or like a journal or something interesting to kind of give me more of that story. And it was fun that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. When this game is rewarding, it's so rewarding. Like, it is exceedingly interesting, and it makes you question, like, how do I feel about this, in a way that a lot of games don't. But when it's like dead, when there's nothing going on, you're like, there's nothing in this room. Like, why am I in this room? We could have skipped this. Like, we could have shaved some time off of this game a little bit.
Yeah, perfectly said. I feel like there were times where environment was really rewarding, and then there were times where it existed because it did. I don't know. It was weird. So, yeah, I agree. I think we're pretty on the same page there for how it worked and how it was. So, yeah, from here, you meet those people. You talk to Catherine on the Omni tool via the radio station. She says, meet me at Lambda. That's a nearby station. You'll go there. Together, we'll do stuff. Also, she thinks it's weird that you don't know why you're there, too. So it's not like she's also a mystery person who's woken up in this space station you don't know anything about. That kind of feel. She's she's not that way. Instead, she's like, I work here. I don't know why you're here either, but I'll help you.
Yeah, she's really chill about the fact that she's like, I don't know who you are, but like, yeah, come over here.
Come on down, man.
Come on, yeah. She's really chill about it.
Yeah, she's not phased at all, and we find out why pretty shortly after. So we head out, and we actually discover that we're not in a space station. We're in an underwater facility, which was quite the reveal. It felt like being in BioShock, basically, except you get to explore outside, which I thought was pretty cool. But so you end up walking at the seafloor for a little while to make it over to kind of the, I don't know, next building in your journey. And you find more and more problems as you go through these stations. There's this black mold looking stuff that's everywhere. You can see that it's kind of overgrown all over things. No humans except Catherine that we've talked to on the phone. A couple insane robots we've mentioned. It's weird. It seems like things have been bad for a long time. Ultimately, you arrive at a shuttle station that you'll be able to hop in and then take that to Lambda. However, partway through the shuttle, you end up crashing because I think there's some debris in the road, and so you have to jump out and continue on foot. And also, Catherine interacts with you kind of through this process. So since you have the Omni tool, it sort of acts as your radio to her, and so you'll arrive at different stations, plug her in, and then she'll be like, okay, I can run this for you. So it's not that Simon has miraculously understood how to live in a deep water place. Instead, she's kind of guiding you the whole way and helping you do the things you need to do.
It is nice. Catherine was like a comfort thing for me too. Like in the periods where, because when you find Catherine, she's inside a robot body again. Like the same idea as like what Carl was. She was just a robot, like an iPad face, and she's just like, I'm in the, like she was attacked by a monster, and you transfer her into your Omni tool. And then once you have her with you, it's very comforting. And like I felt whenever I put the Omni tool down and plugged her into that area, and then she was just like speaking to me over, I'm assuming like the intercom at that point, in a space, I felt a lot more at ease because it was like, okay, Catherine's like my overseer. She can see everything. Like everything's chill. I'm not going to get killed. I was still scared, but my stress level was significantly reduced. And then as soon as you have to pick up Catherine to like keep going, then I was like, oh, I'm by myself again.
Yeah, no, I felt exactly the same way. When you plug her in and you're talking to each other, you're like, okay, we're safe. And also I have a buddy with me. Like it feels different than as opposed to
who knows what's going on.
Yes. And she's like, no, we're going to go to this place. And like, and this is the plan. She's like, she's telling you what to do in a place where you have no idea what's going on. And you're like, great, just give me a task to accomplish. So no, I felt the exact same way. When I was like alone without Catherine talking to me, I was way more stressed out. And then once I was like, it felt like you were reaching a safe zone each time you got to a console where you could plug her in. You're like, God, I'm safe now.
Yeah, I felt like having her, it felt like it could get better. Like, she brought that comfort to you in that of, you know what you're doing, you're the adult here, like, I just happen to be the body that can
You're
do
the
things.
adult.
So,
She's such the adult. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
yeah, totally. And she's not like, she's like, oh, it's just monsters, or oh, it's like, she's like, not phased at all. She's totally cool.
And it's hilarious because like Simon's freaking out sometimes and she's like, do you think you could go flick that switch over there when you're done? Like she's just like, when you're done freaking out, please do this. Like,
Yeah,
she
could you
just
get on
doesn't
with
care.
this anytime?
Yeah.
Anytime.
Like, okay,
When you're ready.
we've moved past this. Let's go. Like,
Yeah, she's totally. I assume she has been consciousness in an iPad for a long time. Like, she seems
Yeah.
very comfortable with her situation. And then also, she really does a big knowledge drop on us once we meet her in person and get her transferred to the Omni tool. So she tells us a couple of big things. One thing she tells us is that we're not human. Actually, we are our brain scan, our consciousness, a dead woman's body, and a thing called a cortex chip kind of all smashed together. So we're this hybrid, and that's why we're not like crazy like the robots, because we have some human in us. But yeah, for whatever reason, it's worked out because we're that combo. And so you're like, oh, I'm not a person. You may have realized that before this. This is where I learned this for sure. You also find out that this is taking place 100 years after you went into Munchie's office. And also that the world has more or less ended since you've been asleep, so to speak. There was a comet that came, it hit the Earth's surface. The Earth's surface is all on fire. The Pathos 2 people are the only ones left on Earth, and you're kind of picking up with that being ruined too. So the world is far different than it was than when Simon remembers, because as Simon, he also experienced it the way we did in the game. He doesn't have memories post that chair. Like, that's where his life stopped and where we picked up. So Simon and us were all confused together and got a pretty heavy knowledge drop from Catherine here.
yeah, and it was
Yeah,
really
it-
cool.
Go ahead, Travis.
Oh yeah, no, I loved. She was just very like nonchalant about the knowledge drop, but it worked. Like, because she's like, this is how life is. She's like, you're from Toronto, like, huh? Like, she's just like, oh, that's cool, I guess. Like, she doesn't feed into the insanity, which kind of does keep you a little bit more sane. Because if she was also just like flying off the handles, not knowing what was going on, then I think it'd just be too confusing. The fact that she was just this very level-headed, knew exactly what was happening, knew what was going on, had a game plan, and she gives you all this knowledge, and you're just like, okay. Like, for me, I accepted what she was saying. Like, yeah, this makes sense. Okay, this is the world that I'm living in, and I mean, and all obviously there was all like the computer logs and stuff that you kind of read up to this point kind of gave you little hints of that, and it was starting to come together, right? And then she gives you like an actual mission to go on, so that there was like a driving force for the rest of the game.
Yeah, at the very, very, very beginning, when she's like, "Hey, meet me at the communication station. I'm just some person on the other side of a comm unit." I was like, I don't know if I trust you. Who are you? What's happening? But once she's like in the Omni tool and you're actually having conversations with her, I was like, yep, nope. You're my person. You seem to know what's going on, and like, why would you make up any of this stuff? Like, the way she presented it felt like the truth. Like, I wasn't questioning it at all. So yeah, no, she was my buddy, trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah, she seemed totally transparent in all of that with it. And I think that's probably why she was able to be nonchalant, like was mentioned, is that she's like, this is just what happened. We've got to work with what we've got. In this, too, when you first meet her, she tells you your mission, which is we've got to go and launch the Ark into space. And what the Ark is a simulated reality that's populated by brain scans. And her thought is, if we send this into space, that's going to give kind of humanity a second chance out there because the world's ruined or something. That's sort of her idea. And you're kind of like, I don't know, that seems weird, but okay, I'll join you. Like, and she also kind of says we could be able to get on the Ark and go to space too. And so you're like, well, Pathos sucks, so sure, I'll join your journey. This makes sense. But the Ark is currently at a site called Tau, which is on the opposite end of Pathos 2. So, as said, this sort of sets your journey. We're going to make our way there, then we're going to try to launch into space. Another thing that happens here that I thought was notable is you go to a computer and you can take a quiz about how you feel about being a brain scan that could go into Ark, which was a... Catherine previously had ran the Ark project before the world ended. That's what she did as a human before she was the iPad. And you take the quiz, and it's like, do you feel like you would feel more like you, less like you, the same? And there's a couple other questions like that. And it comes up, and at least when I took it, I was like, I don't know. Are you a person or not? I'm not sure. So I felt sort of in the middle or uncertain when I took it. I don't know if that was your reaction as well.
Yeah, I think, similar. I wasn't full out, I'm not real, I'm detached from reality, I'm a figment, like was placed in a robot body. It seems like it is a survey designed, they present it as a survey designed by the company that has kind of designed this whole setup, whereas they are... copying everyone's consciousness and uploading it into the Ark as the only way to like preserve humanity. Whereas everyone's going to die because this comet has shrunk Earth. And they're like, well, we'll just upload everyone. And that way, that is the only way that that we are going to preserve any semblance of humanity is by uploading consciousnesses, which is difficult to say, and then launching it into space. So that seems designed by this company to be like, how do you feel? Like, how is this project going? How you doing? Do you feel okay? Like in your robot body? And I'm like, I don't know. I was kind of in the middle. I was like, I don't feel fully, just completely foreign, which is what some of the options were. Some of them I was like, I don't know. I feel kind of the same. And then, which... a lot of it seemed to be, I'll get into this later because it reoccurs later. A lot of this seems to be attached to location because I was like, I don't know, I feel out of place, but I don't feel like I'm not me, was basically my sentiment. Was like, I am a person, I am me, I'm a continuation of me, but I feel extremely unsettled, which is, I mean, how I felt about the entire environment in general.
Yeah. Same thing. Like I was very middling, like, and I think it very much was location and also just knowledge at the time. It was kind of like, I don't know what's going on. I feel like me, but I feel like I'm in the wrong place. Like I feel like something isn't right, but it isn't necessarily because I am a scan of my brain put into a robot body.
It's not because something's wrong with me. It's because like, I don't know what the hell is going on also. It doesn't help things.
Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting if, like, to come at that quiz from a perspective of, like, a regular human having their brain scanned and taking that quiz.
Yeah. And having
and feeling
the expectation.
Like, do I feel like...
of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Of being like, no, I know what the purpose of this scan is for. Rather than all of a sudden just out of nowhere waking up 100 years later.
Exactly. And, like, saying, okay, I had my brain scanned. I feel like me... do I think that is me? Like the scan of me is me? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's a different sense because you're still your own person, right? And I mean, we get into that later with a little bit more lore that comes later on, but like some people take it like to an extreme, a really, really interesting extreme of like dealing with how is it that there's a living brain scan and also myself at the same time, right?
Yeah, totally. So this ultimately gets us on our journey, though. Our first stop is Theta Station, and at some of these stations, more happens than others. So, I don't know. There could be details that get lost along the way or mixed in, because really, from this point, you have a couple pit stops along the way before you get to like your big location where a lot more happens. So, as a forewarning. But Theta Station, one thing that happens is you have to repair an antenna and then call a craft called the Zeppelin to act as your kind of way between these. So what Catherine, since she knows and is a part of this system, she kind of knows where different transportation is or faster ways to get places. So at different points, she's like, okay, if we get in this thing, we'll go here. So she's sort of your guide through all of this. You end up calling a machine called a Zeppelin. It comes over. However, it needs a chip that's not in it, so you can like continue forward. And while you're walking around, you see a robot that's just kind of a little crazy, but not hostile. It's kind of just doing its own thing. And you have to go to it and kill it to take its chip. And it's like screaming at you when you kill it. It's like, oh, fuck off, fuck, it hurts. Like, you feel really bad about it. Or I did, at least.
Yeah, I had the same experience where I was just like, this guy's just going about his business. Like, I have a coworker that just talks to himself while he's doing his thing. Like, I'm going to go up and kill him. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
so it's just
absolutely.
He's got, like, he's done nothing. Like, I'm sorry that I need to do this. And Catherine's just like, don't worry, he can't feel it. He's just a robot. Don't worry about it. But like, it's definitely one of those moral questions where you're like, she's saying it's a robot, but like, if he acts human and feels like a human and thinks he's a human, does it matter that he's in a robot body? Like, so it's like one of those first initial, like, oh gosh, what did I just do?
Yeah. I feel like they really escalate this ethical dilemma throughout the game. But that's kind of the first issue where you're like, but you haven't had enough interaction with this robot to actually be like, oh no, he seems to be like full-fledged, not human. Human is too like reductive, I think, but like too self-aware. Like you're like, you know that he's going about his business and he's talking to himself and and he seems to be like happy with what he's doing, but like you don't actually know that he's has like motivations and like, you know, different things like that.
Yeah, you don't know if there's like thoughts beyond.
Yeah,
like,
whereas like he has hopes and dreams
just,
and like, you know, all that stuff that makes people like really, that makes a full-fledged being like a full-fledged being with its own thoughts and motivations. So you're like, but he's going about his business on his own, just doing his own thing, and you're just walking in and just taking him out for your own benefit. And yes, the Catherine being like, no, it's fine. He doesn't know any different. You're like, but does he? So you have that like little inkling of doubt, but I feel that that's like way expanded upon later in the game. But they kind of set that stage, like just they plant that little seed.
Right. And for me, at least, this was the first time I kind of questioned Catherine's judgment. Like, is she too pragmatic? Is it just, I'll do what I need to accomplish the mission? Versus you're like, I mean, he was a robot, like, I don't know if he was doing something worthwhile or not, but is he that different from you or me? You were an iPad a minute ago. Now you're in this tool. I'm a robot of some sort. I'm a mishmash of things. Like, how are we that different? And Simon certainly feels that and feels that guilt. And us as the player, we're like, I don't know. Like, maybe I don't want to kill these robots unless they try to kill me. Like, are they bad? So dilemmas certainly arrive there. But you do take that piece and you do make it onto your next location, which is Theta Station. And inside Theta, this section I thought was pretty scary too. There's a scary monster at one point in this one. Maybe one of the parts I was most scared at. But inside Theta, you have to restart power and to be able to access some computers you need to. And when you do, it goes pitch black and you have to go into the basement. And there's this big monster walking around who can't see very well, but is super frightening. And so you have to like sneak around, maneuver your way to get there. Super scared of him for sure. But then once you kind of go down there to reset the panel you needed to, you end up looking for a file on one of the computers to be able to get some info you need regarding the Ark. And so you find a file of this guy named Brandon Wan who lived at this station. who he thought he was in the Ark when you like upload him. And then you kind of find some information to essentially be able to trick him into giving you the info you need. So you make yourself look like one of his coworkers, you make the environment look how it needs to, and you essentially just trick him to be able to get the info you need to continue your mission.
And this was another one of those like really interesting like ethical dilemmas for me, in that you essentially find a copy of his scan so that you can upload it over and over and over again, to try to figure out, like, you needed to get like some security cipher of some kind, and he knew it. And he every single time he woke up, you could tell that, like, yeah, that this was the scan that took place, and this is the continuation of that life. And you just had to keep rebooting him, and he would keep stressing out because he didn't understand what was going on, and it was a simulation, and he knew something wasn't right. And it was interesting to see Simon react to that, and even Catherine reacting to it too. Like, we can't keep doing this over and over and over again, trying to like figure out what bits of information or what kind of, like Catherine pretending to be the coworker and not pulling it off very well. And and Brandon's just like, you're not her, get out of here. Like trying to figure out this information, but you kept having to reboot him and shut him down, and reboot him and shut him down. And really, are you like, if we're considering the idea that these brain scans are essentially what we have left of our humanity, are you essentially bringing him back to life and killing him over and over and over again and using him to get the information that you need? Like, there's nothing wrong with his brain scan. His brain scan is no different, really, than Simon's or Catherine's in this case. It's not like it's some weird copy. That copy was then uploaded to the Ark, I'm assuming. Like it's just a copy of a copy at that point. So you have this idea of, is this right? Like, where it's just interesting, like, where are we drawing the line with what counts as what is considered a human anymore?
Yeah, I felt parts of that made me feel more not right about it, and then certain things made me feel like it was less human, because you're uploading this scan, and then like I felt bad as you were uploading him, and he was in a foreign place, and he was like, no, this isn't right, this is right, and he would stress out, and then basically get into like a panic attack where you'd have to shut it back down. But then when you reloaded him, it was like it hadn't even happened.
Yeah,
which
because you're restarting that
makes
scan.
Yes, which kind of makes it less real. Like, it makes it less permanent, which I feel like that's a thing about being, again, human is a reductive term that I'm using, but I'll use it, I guess, because I don't really have a better word for it. But it makes it less human in the fact that you can just reset it and go, well, we'll just try again. And that thing that we just didn't happen. So it was, it's very ethically tricky. Whereas each time though, I felt bad. Whereas I'm like, no, we're using this person for a utilitarian purpose. And we're like harming his like psyche. Like he's not well while we're doing this thing to get to an objective that we want, that is self-serving. But when we reboot him, he doesn't remember it. So like, where is the line of like what is real and what isn't? Because if we can just erase it, did it even happen? Like it just goes away. So I don't know. That's the thing. I was so excited to talk about this because it's like, I wanted to hear people's perspective but I still felt bad, but I still wanted to keep it as minimal as possible. And I wanted to achieve my goal in as few tries as possible. Cause I didn't want to I didn't want to cause pain to this person, more or less. But at the same time, it was like, well, I just erased that experience. So did that experience even happen? I don't know.
Right. It brings that question, like, is it wrong if they don't remember? And it's like, well, I remember as Simon, so to me it felt pretty wrong.
Yeah, it feels
but
bad.
Yeah, it feels bad. But yeah, same thing. I was like, all right, I want to get this right as quick as possible. So once I did it once or twice, I was like, oh shit, all right, I'm going to go survey everything so that we can be able to, I don't know, make this okay. I don't want to hurt him more. Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Another thing that you find out in that area is basically that you found out that through some logs that you read that there has been an epidemic of these people who are being scanned for the Ark to be uploaded into the Ark to be sent off into space to like continue humanity. But there's been multiple people who right after they were scanned basically committed suicide.
Yeah.
Where they were like, oh, you scanned my consciousness off, so I killed myself immediately after. Basically to, I guess in their mind, to make it a direct continuation so that there's no like duplicate issue where there's a person who is almost redundant who's on this planet that's being destroyed and this other them that's been uploaded. So, but then the people who've been directing this study have been like, well, we can't have all these people killing themselves. So we need to shut this down. And again, there's like a whole morality thing where it's like, I understand why they're doing this though. Cause they're like, well, I'm uploading myself and I'm going to end it. And that way it's a direct continuation. And they're kind of trying to eliminate the ethical quandary that's there, even though it's there no matter what. Right?
Yeah.
So you can't eliminate it, but they're kind of trying their best. And then the people who are doing it are like, well, I'm scanning these people and then they're killing themselves. So then they feel terrible. And it's a mess.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting because it's like the idea that you want to prioritize your continuation of your life, of what you deem
and being it as seamless as possible.
Yes.
Without it being messy at all, basically.
Yeah. So you like upload your consciousness and you have to end your life immediately so that there is no other like double life. Like my life now becomes the continuation of that information in a computer is my life going forward. Mm-hmm. And it's such an interesting concept. And I don't even know how to I still don't know if I've fully wrapped my brain around all of the ideas around it, right? Like the idea that it's hard to really think beyond like my own scope here, right? But like I get the concept that like, yeah, that is my life now. Like that is my life and I am just this leftover remains and I better just end it because that's my life. It's just so strange to think about and I don't know how to like wrap my brain around it yet.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. I feel the same way. I'm like, I guess probably for all of this, I'm sure there's philosophy people who probably know this stuff better than us and could argue better things than we do. But we're gonna do our shot, and I really like that we are. But with that, like it does seem less ethically wrong if you killed your own copy. Or stuff like that, that continuous timeline. That seems a little ethically better than like if I killed your copy. That seems shitty to do.
Right,
you're like, yeah, time for you to die.
Yeah, you're making your own choice about what is happening to your body and your consciousness. Whereas if someone else is being like, no, I'm going to copy you and then I'm going to kill you, that's a level above messed up. But if you're like, no, I'm going to copy myself and then I'm going to kill myself. I mean, I guess it's your body, it's your mind. You can kind of make that own determination, but yeah, it's ethically messy for sure.
Because then it's interesting because it's like, okay, if I continue having experiences in my own body and you copied me on a specific date, then the experiences that I've had now after you've copied me aren't continued over. So
yeah. It's two entirely different beings.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, okay, now I want you to recopy me again because I've had more experiences. You know what I mean? Like, how do you deal with that?
Right. And right. What happens if they meet? Would that like ruin them both?
Right.
Like,
they kind of
what
say
if
that.
you met you? Yeah. Okay, it would ruin you.
They kind of say like, well, there can't be two Simons. There can't be two this. Whereas, I mean, I guess there could be if they're in different places.
And don't interact with each other.
I mean, if both
Yeah.
know that this is a thing that happens, I would think they could interact with each other. I don't see why they couldn't if they're both aware that this is a possibility. But I mean, in the current way that the world is, it's kind of framed as in this is the way to continue your own consciousness.
Like continuity.
Yes.
I think that was the word they used.
Yes, continuity. Which is another thing which I wonder, you know what, we'll get to it. I'll save it. A little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, so it really brings up a lot. Is this right? Is this wrong? Would you break if you saw yourself? Like, a lot of problems here, but we more or less abuse the system to get the information we need to continue on our journey.
Yes.
Not feeling great about it. As time has gone on, I feel less like a good guy, for sure. And more part of a questionable mission, maybe.
Before we move on from Mr. Wan, you had the choice after you uploaded him
Oh, yes.
to either basically erase his data, erase that copy of Mr. Wan, or just leave him like on a USB, on a floppy disk, whatever era you come from. You know, whatever you grew up with, you could leave him as data lying around, or you could just erase him. What'd you guys do?
I left him. I didn't erase him. I left him alone because I kind of thought to myself, like, I would rather have, what if our plan doesn't work? Mm-hmm. The idea that at least there is another potential human scan somewhere viable, maybe it could continue. And I kind of, maybe that was my thought process too with leaving Amy alive earlier on. I was like, there's still hope that something could happen from there. And like, he's just shut down. He's just sleeping. But like, I didn't feel like I needed to kill him, essentially.
Interesting. I erased him because I thought the real Brandon is in the Ark. He wants to continue there. Mm-hmm. We're going to shoot that off. He'll get through there. And I guess hopefully this doesn't happen to him again. So that was sort of my way of thinking about it.
I probably picked the wrong thing.
No, honestly, you know what, Travis? I think you're right. I feel like thinking now, I think I would leave him. I erased him. Mainly because I felt like he was which is kind of the whole quandary of the entire game, is what do you do with these people where it's like they're contained to like data. Whereas I feel like we had just put him through so much and we were doing it over and over and over again. I was like, we're just torturing this person and rebooting them and doing it again. And I felt like maybe I have less faith in humanity, whereas I felt like leaving him there was an opportunity for someone to mess with him rather than an opportunity for someone to like let him grow and like prosper. Like I felt like I was like, I felt like I was leaving him vulnerable as opposed to leaving him with opportunity, which I don't know what that says about me, but but I felt like I was like, no, I can't let people mess with him anymore.
Do this later, yeah.
So I felt like I erased him, which I don't know how I felt about. Like at the time I felt bad. But I was like, I guess this is a decision I made. Like, I don't think anyone felt good about any decisions that they made in this game.
No,
like I felt like everyone felt conflicted about whatever they did, no matter what.
Which is a sign of like a good game where you're having to make those decisions, right? So.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like when games that have choices like this, if they make you see the other side afterwards and you're like, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah.
Those are good decisions. Because after Travis's explanation, and as we've had this conversation so far, I'm like, maybe I did the wrong thing. And, you know, for the choices that come up in the future, I'm like, oh no, maybe I did the wrong thing there too. Like, it's feeling that, which is good. I think that this game, in this department, is super successful. It's really landing this stuff.
Especially because, like, that copy didn't make it to the Ark. So it was like, so he's just, like, in purgatory, which someone can just, like, kind of, like, reboot him over and over and over again and do whatever the hell they want. And I was like, I felt icky about it. I felt...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know. There's no right answer at this point.
God. Yeah. No, I don't think there is either. Not yet. Maybe by the end we'll solve this and we'll have a good
Maybe.
answer for people. Probably not, but maybe we'll get there. So, all right, we wrap this up. We continue our journey from here, and we take the elevator down Theta. But on the way down, the elevator breaks. It like snaps. We hit the ground. And then there is another monster down there that's really scary, and it's not one you can avoid. You get like a cutscene where it like grabs you, and then you wake up attached to a wall, as if like Spider-Man like webbed you to it or something. You do get out of that. You have to explore for a while, because your goal is to get to a submarine that's here, because that submarine is going to be your way out of here, and it'll take you to kind of your next location. So Theta Station doesn't work out. The submarine we go to find has human consciousness in it as well. It freaks out when we try to go to it, and it just like runs off. Planned foiled again. Catherine's different vehicles to speed up our process continue to not work. So we continue on foot again, and we're heading to a site called Omicron. And on the way there, we've got to restart power from the outside to get in there. It has like a big garage door type thing. It's huge. And you have to restart the power to get in there. And this was another time where the instructions were unclear, so there's a robot nearby that I thought I needed to take a piece from again, and I killed it, and then I found out I didn't need to kill it, so I felt pretty bad about that. It's like, fuck.
Well, I just need to kill you. No.
Yeah, 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 and then I was like, oh, I didn't need to do that. I'm an asshole. But you do get in, eventually.
That was the very pleasant one. She was super nice. I don't remember her name. She was a very nice robot. Yes, I left her alone.
She was the best robot that you meet along the way, and
she's just like, "Is this the Ark? It's weird. Where is everyone? Is this the Ark?"
That's so sad.
It
like,
is. It's very
this is
sad.
where I'm supposed to be, right? And you're like, yeah. Sure.
And you can't tell her that she's not where she's supposed to be.
Yeah,
at
and
all.
like you can use like multiple dialogue. Like you can continue to I played on PlayStation, so you you R2 to like interact with anything, and you can do it repeatedly, and you'll like continue to get new dialogue until a certain point, obviously. And I was like, I guess I'll keep talking to her, and she's like, yeah, this is great, we're on the Ark, isn't this awesome? And you're like, yeah, you're totally on the Ark, everything's great.
Poor thing.
I felt so bad.
I left her.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I left her. Yeah.
She seemed happy.
I guess on the ocean floor.
I wish I left her. I wish I didn't misunderstand. I felt like a monster.
Killed her?
Yeah, you thought
on
you
accident.
to get in.
I thought I needed her parts. I didn't. Yeah, I felt like a total asshole. And then when it was for nothing, I was like, oh man, I killed that robot for no reason, and she was so nice, even though she was misguided. She's not on the Ark, but you do get inside, and inside Omicron, you have this weird thing that starts to happen, where you start getting like brief messages where you hear like a phrase, keep going, or whatever, and briefly see Johann Ross, who was one of the lead people down here. And I don't know if this happened for you, Katie, if you thought this, but it reminded me of like the weird alien stuff in Metro 2033 when we played that, where there's just like a okay. When it happened, I was like, that totally feels like Metro to me. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Whereas in Metro 2033, and I had conflicted thoughts about that game also. But yes, where you see this being who is like, no, you're on the right track, and like basically directing you where to go, and seems like they also have your same interests. Where they just kind of appear and then like go away, and your screen is doing things where it's getting almost like it's getting interference, where it's kind of like messing up your screen a little bit and getting like bunches, almost as if there's like line of text that aren't there or something, and saying brief things and then leaving, which was extremely creepy. But I was like, I guess you're not hurting me, but I don't like it. I'd like that you stopped messing with my screen, because none of this is fun. None of it. None of this game was fun for me, but I liked it. Again, obviously, with this discussion, I loved the ideas that it threw at me, but like the actual gameplay, I was like, please stop. Just stop doing all of this. I don't want to play this game. But I do, but I don't. But yeah. But yes, it literally made me think of Metro 2033. I was like, I wonder if Dan's going to bring that up because
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I thought too. I was like, I wonder if Katie will feel the same way. But what's weird with this is Catherine doesn't seem to comment on it. Maybe she can't see it. Maybe there's something like that, which is kind of weird. So you almost have like a secret from her, which is kind of strange since she's been your guide and all of this stuff and knows everything that's going on. But for whatever reason, Simon doesn't bring it up. And so it's just kind of a thing you deal with and, affects the game as we go. The thing you have to do here at Omicron is you need to gather some items. You've got to get a structured gel, a battery pack, and a Cortex chip because you're going to transfer yourself into a Big Daddy, essentially.
more or less.
More or less, to be able to go into the deep sea because all your various vehicles the pressure is really high there, so you've got to use the Big Daddy suit. And so you fetch quest around to find these items. And also what you're going to do is you find the Big Daddy suit you're going to go into has another person's body in it, but their head is missing. So you're essentially able to do whatever happened to Simon that got him here in this body. Because you'll get these 3 items, you've got the body, you've got the chips, all that shit. And so your aim is basically, I'm going to transfer myself, I'll be a Big Daddy now, and I'll continue on. Which brings up our next kind of big ethical dilemma that we all dealt with, which is Catherine's going to make this transfer, and it happens, and she tells us before this, it's a coin flip. 50-50 chance you get transferred as your consciousness that just happened, 50% chance it's the copy that goes over. It happens, and it's us. We're in the Big Daddy suit. We can continue our mission on foot. However, the question comes up, well, what do we do with the copy of Simon who's passed out in Simon's previous body to this? What's our plan? So what did you two do here?
This was a hard one.
It really was hard.
Yeah. Because when Simon wakes up, in the new body, he's like, what did I just hear? And he hears his previous self, the original copy kind of said something, and then Catherine essentially says oh, well, he'll just be sleeping for a little bit. But then Catherine hasn't deceived you in any way. She's been very straightforward about copies and everything like that, but you don't really get firsthand experience with it until this moment where you realize that you're not transferring. She just copy-pasted you. She copy-pasted you into a new thing. Yeah. So your previous self is still alive in your previous body. And that's the thing. As the player, you win the coin flip, essentially, right? The coin flip is really for the player when you think about it. We won the coin flip when the transfer happens from, Toronto to now, and then we win the coin flip again so that we can continue with the story, right? But essentially you just have 2 copies. There's 2 different things, and I sat there for a while just staring at myself in the original pilot seat thinking, what do I do here? Do I leave him or do I kill him? I ultimately decided to kill him.
Really? I thought she would decide the other way. So why did you decide to do that?
That's the thing. It's funny because I left Brandon 1, right?
Is it because you couldn't see Brandon?
Maybe. And also in the context of what was going to happen next, we were just chased into this room by a monster and Catherine had to lock the door. We were taking Catherine as the Omnitool out into the deep sea. My original self had no means of exiting that room. But then again, what if he found a way?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess I made the assumption for him or myself him/me. I made, you know what I mean? Like, is it me? Is it not me? I don't know. Is it me? I don't know. But like, I made the assumption that I would be by myself, wake up with no Catherine, not really understanding, probably because Simon still really didn't understand the concept of copying. He was still grappling with it, and the idea that original Simon, or Simon 2, I guess, would wake up thinking, well, what the heck happened? Someone took the suit and Catherine is missing. Like, he wouldn't grasp the concept of the copying happened, and he'd be by himself. So I thought, like, what is he going to do? He's going to be alone forever in this room and can ultimately not do anything. Like, I just kind of figured, I think I wasn't on board with the, like, gung-ho like continuity, like kill yourself after a copy thing, but I think the concept of it kind of made sense to me, that I was like, I don't want to leave this guy here to be by himself and not be able to do anything. So I ended up shutting him off, and I'm still not sure if I feel right about it, but it was a weird one. I sat there for a very long time.
Yeah. No, I did the same. I sat there and looked at him and was like, what do I do? I eventually also decided to kill him. And you know what? I had the kind of the same trail as you did, whereas I'm like, I felt like it was, and I don't know if this is right. Like, I go both ways about this, but at the moment, it felt very utilitarian to just be like, oh, I made you and I'm just going to leave you. And like, but at the same time, I also understand what you're saying, whereas he has the potential to succeed and leave that area and accomplish whatever he's going to accomplish. But it felt very cruel, which Simon kind of says it feels cruel to leave him there.
Yeah.
To leave him there, and he wakes up and he's alone and in a tiny little facility at the bottom of the ocean, and like he got the wrong side of the coin flip and the end. And also, I think a big part of my decision was that he was still asleep.
Yes.
And that he wasn't even awake yet. Whereas
if he was awake, I don't know what I would have done.
That's a whole other bag. Whereas it's like, you're not even conscious yet. Whereas it's pure continuity. Whereas you're not even awake. You're done. You're gone. And now I'm Simon, and I'm continuing our continuity as if nothing happened. Which, right or wrong, again, this whole thing is, I mean, this could kind of be pushed into like societal issues that I don't think we're going to delve into. But whether or not someone is conscious or not, and,
able to make their own decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether or not they deserve the chance or not. And it's not deserve or not, but it's whether or not it's fair to that person. Whether it's like, I put you in this situation, so I'm going to leave you in this terrible situation because I did this to you. And it felt cruel to be like, I did this to you, and I'm going to, and you're going to have to deal with the consequences, basically, as opposed to being like, no, I'll take care of it for you. Like, you're good. Don't worry about it. As opposed to, like I said, being like, I made you, and now you're the one who's going to have to either suffer or not and deal with it. I don't know. And I don't even know where I stand now, but I made the decision to kill Simon.
I was the same and had the same process as both of you and I think, again, because it's me, like we talked about earlier, I think if I did this to another being and they were knocked out, I don't know if I would have killed, like,
but it's
the
me.
other person.
Exactly. It's
a
me. Copy of me.
It's a copy of me, and like, I'd be fucking over other Simon potentially pretty bad leaving him here. So that was, my process was the same thing. So I killed him. I felt bad about it, but I thought it was probably like, and still question it some, but it did seem like the right thing to do for me. Like, how awful it would be to restart this, but with less help again.
There's just like a little bit of like but what if? You know what I mean? Like, what if he could have done something? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's just that little bit at the back of your brain that like, was that the wrong choice? I don't know.
No,
So
yeah.
interesting.
And I think that's like important that we can have that because, as Katie mentioned, the ethical dilemmas in real life that can come up for that. Like, do you not give medicine to people who, it might not work for them, but it could, or something? Like, no, you probably should, things like that. And this really brings that. Just it makes it a little weird because we're dealing with robots instead of human beings.
Well,
And
yeah.
as Katie said, it's sort of reductive, but it still sort of applies. It's like,
Yeah, because like we're having to like change our definition of what is considered a human a little bit, right? Like we're
Yeah.
considering a brain scan to essentially be what we're considering a human now, right? Like what is killing and what is just turning off a machine. And I guess they're kind of the same thing in this world, right?
Which I think this game, I love this game for the decisions and the thoughts and like all the paths that it made me go down mentally and emotionally. Love it. But how I had a thought. I don't know where I was going with it. It's a tricky game to think about.
it is.
But yeah, basically that the game presents these issues to you and uses robots as a kind of way to make it okay to put it in a game, to be honest.
Right.
To make it a presentable choice to you, as opposed to like, I feel like these choices present themselves in real life in society in a way that's much more polarizing, and sometimes people are hostile about it. Whereas this is like, hey, we're adding this layer on top of that where you have to consider, do you think that consciousness is still valid as data? Basically.
Right.
So there's not only like that human level of like ethical debate, but then there's like they add on that another level of this consciousness as data debate. And it's kind of mind bending.
Yeah.
And I found myself on
really
both
is.
sides. Like I sat there thinking like, oh, I can totally see both sides of this. And I feel like most people would see, at least they may feel strongly about their choice, but I feel like you would still, the way that the game presents the option, I feel like you would still see empathetically, you would see the alternative as a valid choice, which I think is really good. Like it's really good. It's such good game writing. Again,
it really
I
is.
kind of hate the gameplay in so many different ways, and I kind of hated
Safe
playing
mode.
it, but I loved what it showed me and like what games can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really,
sure.
really good.
100%. We've got a little bit of listener feedback on this question. We had some people weigh in. A bunch of coconuts on Twitter said, I killed everyone I had the chance to kill or not kill. So they ran that way. Celeste on Twitter said yes, but I viewed it as a mercy killing. So I think that's probably a little similar to our vibe as well.
Fanhaim on Reddit said, didn't kill the copy of Simon. I believe any sentient beings should be able to choose their own fate. When that Simon wakes up and he wants to die, then that will be his decision to make. I also assume that both Simon was me making the decision. I personally prefer to struggle through any nightmare I may face rather than dying. It may look like that Simon would not have any purpose to continue living, but what if there was actually purposes that we don't know of? The second Simon didn't wake up in Upsilon and find his purpose immediately. What if the second Simon found another scientist with an important mission? We can't know for sure, but if we kill off that Simon, then we'll never know. Which is absolutely totally valid. And that was kind of the other element that I was kind of struggling with when I made my decision. Also, I'm going to keep talking. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. But I was thinking through this whole thing with the extra Simon of what if I initially at the start of the game, when we first like click into Upsilon, what if I was a second Simon? Like, what if I was the leftover Simon that another Simon left and he had to copy himself into someone else and he left me in the chair? Because we wake up in a chair just like this other Simon that we have to choose the fate of. So like, what if I initially was a leftover Simon that like a copy Simon looked at and was like, no, I'm going to leave you. And then he left. And that's the only reason why we exist in the entire game, is because a primary Simon was like, nah, I'll let this secondary Simon live and I'll go on with my life. And then we wake up and we find our purpose. That was kind of an element that I was thinking of. I was like, oh, what if we're a secondary copy that was just a leftover? So I was
blow
in
my
such a
mind even
mind,
more.
right? What if you are?
Yeah.
Fuck.
I don't know.
I think if I would have thought that, I would have probably left him
Yeah.
more. But I never thought that, though. But like this argument and talking through it, it's probably wrong to say that you can make a choice for someone that they can't do something worthwhile or important or meaningful. And so choosing that for Simon is kind of shitty.
I don't know.
Kind of shitty.
But it's
but
kinda
I
mean.
guess. But
He's
if it's
mean.
you, right? That's where it's. Oh, yeah, with you, that makes it pretty complicated. Because, again, if like the person whose head we took over, like the Big Daddy person, if they got transferred into Simon's old body, we like just swapped. I don't think I would kill them because that would seem unfair. Even if I fucked them over by taking their Big Daddy suit and put them in my old body. Like, I don't think I could kill them because they deserve a shot, even though I kind of robbed them, I guess. But when it's me, oh man, yeah, this game's challenging.
Right? There's a lot. There's more opinions to get through.
Fight Me on Reddit says, I killed the copy of Simon since I had seen all of the bodies connected to the WoW, alive but eternally just existing, unable to end their torment by themselves. Very true. That's the thing. There may not have been a means, like, he just maybe like Simon 2 just eventually just goes crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
We
mean?
see a lot of those in the environment of just people being like, they're just kind of struggling and like suffering forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, because really, Catherine is the one who's most with it that you ever meet outside of yourself. And then the robot that thought they were in the Ark, they were at least not hostile, but they were wrong. And then the one that was kind of meandering that you kill for a part. But those really, by and large, yeah, most of them are pretty insane that you meet along the way. And yeah, probably just suffering at the bottom of the sea kind of thing. Last person we got, though, is Ping on Reddit, who said, I killed Simon. Without Catherine, he can't even open doors. So he would have been stuck alone in that one room until he manages to find some way of suicide, if he can even do that before going completely insane. I don't think any life is better than death, and leaving him there was way beyond anything I would ever do to anybody.
Yeah.
And
That's kind of how
that,
I feel.
yeah. Yeah, that I feel like that's a good counter argument to the don't kill one. So yeah, I don't know, complicated stuff. I'm sure a lot of people have other opinions. Good stuff from people though. Thanks for writing in. Now you continue with Simon in your Big Daddy suit to descend to be able to fire off the Ark. And you go outside. You walk across this balcony to take an elevator that goes down to Site Tau. And while you're going down this elevator, you get another appearance from Johann Ross. He like comes up to you and you like freeze and glitch out essentially. And Catherine is like, yeah, you just kind of like froze. I don't know.
She's so
she
chill.
like,
She's
yeah.
the most chill.
Yeah, you don't explain it too far, and she doesn't really press you. But you go down, you make it into Site Tau from there. Inside Site Tau, you're looking around for the Ark, and one notable thing you do is you find Catherine's dead body. You find out that she was killed as a person when she was trying to launch the Ark before, in the past sometime. She was like going to launch it, but some of her crew members who were there were trying to get her not to, and then somehow in the struggle, one of them like hit her head and it killed her. And so you experience that, and you end up telling Catherine like, hey, I found out what happened to you, kind of thing. And it's a little strange. And she's like, man, it's weird to know how I died, kind of thing. Like, she's a little, she's not like super shook up by it, but more shook up than she's ever been by anything else.
It was interesting. She's just kind of like, I know I wasn't the easiest to get along with, but like, I can't believe they killed me. Like,
She's so
like,
matter of fact about it. She's like,
she's
I mean,
like,
I
they
guess.
killed me. Yeah.
And some of the
Yeah.
audio logs are like, yeah, she's a little weird, but like, she's cool.
Mhm.
Like, she's fine.
Yeah.
Like, no one seems to have a big problem with her, but they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
she's a little weird and quiet. But that's okay.
Uh-huh.
It's funny because thinking about it, like in retrospect, it felt like the arc was, I mean, and it is like the be all end all. We needed to, like, you need to
Yeah.
do the arc mission in order to save humanity. And really, by the sounds of it, Catherine was like the most gung ho person about it. And everyone's like, nah, maybe we shouldn't. Or no, let's stop because people are killing themselves. Or how about we just hit you with a wrench and you die? Like, instead of like
Yep.
being gung-ho about it, it wasn't like this be-all end-all mission that it kind of is being made out to be, but that's because Catherine is your point of reference for what happened before, right? Like,
Right.
she's the one guiding you. So it's interesting. It was just an interesting thing to be like, oh, it didn't happen because people weren't totally on board with it just yet. Like, not in the same way that you're making it seem, because this is her life's mission to do this, right? So it's just interesting.
Which I think is super realistic. Like, people would, I can't imagine an entire group of kind of very intelligent scientist related people being like, yeah, this is clearly the best option is to upload everyone's consciousness as data to this little basically, I'm sorry, like a giant USB and shipping it off into the world, or like a computer, basically a computer that's running a simulation. We're going to upload it to the simulation. We're going to ship it up into the atmosphere. I can imagine a group of people being like, no, that's kind of messed up, and we're going to try and preserve humanity here, or even just keep
The arc
here. And like,
I think that's what they were trying to do.
We'll maintain it here, and that's kind of our last resort, and we'll keep it here. And we're kind of continue trying to live, as opposed to, basically jettisoning it into space, into deep space. Yeah, I don't
Right,
know.
because it seemed like it's this. I think the scientist on each end viewed this as like humanity's Hail Mary or whatever, like the last thing you can do. And Catherine was like, team, this is the play. This is the only thing. But then the other scientists were like, I think you're right that this thing is important, but is this the way to do it?
But also, somebody killed her. That's a little harsh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might have been by accident. It seems like it was by accident.
It was by accident, but still, that
But
got
still.
messy real fast.
Yeah.
It did. I imagined that, slight spoilers for Fargo season 1, but it reminded me of the beginning of that first episode in there where a tool is used like that and it kills someone, but like, it's like, oh, that kills the way it did. I didn't mean to kill you. I was just kind of mad. And then I did something way worse than I meant to.
Yeah. They're dead now. They're super dead now.
Yeah. Super
Not really,
dead.
though. Your consciousness continues on in the arc.
Oh, yeah. She's not even dead. You know, it's all the same.
That-
What does
no
any
big
of
deal.
this matter?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're all good. Yeah. So find that out. But then ultimately we do find the Ark. And it's being guarded by the last human who is alive. Which was crazy. I never thought we'd see a person.
Yeah.
It's her name's Sarah Lindwall. She worked on in Pathos too, so she's like a real human, lived here, all of that, and she's not doing well. She's protected the Ark. It seemed like she was maybe among those last crew members that killed Catherine. Like, she didn't kill her, but she was among those people who were still alive at that point. And now she is really rough. She's on life support. She looks like super emaciated and all that stuff. Not looking great. And you come to her and you're like, hey, I'm here to launch the Ark into space. That's what I'm here to do, kind of thing. And she's like, great. I wanted it to be able to do this. Like, you can take over. I'm happy about this. And you have the option to take her off of life support when you take the Ark as well. And she asked you to as well. And it's like, my mission is done here. I'm done. Will you take me off life support? So she asked you to do that. That's one side of the conflict. I guess the other side of the conflict is, can you kill the last person that's alive? Are you allowed to make that choice even though you're a robot? I don't know. So what did you guys do here?
My answer is yes. Absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
She asks me to. She basically is like, please, please just end it. Like, what is she going to do? She's going to sit in this chair until the machinery that's keeping her alive breaks down, which could take, decades. Who the hell knows? No, she asked me to. Like, as a favor, she was like, please do this. So I'm like, yes, I will do this for you. So absolutely. And I had no ethical issues with this. This was like the clearest cut decision for me, was like, yes, I will absolutely take you off life support. You are asking me to. Yes, I will do that for you.
I also killed her. She asked me to. She also asked if I could stay, so I stayed there and I
Yes,
waited
did
until
too,
she
yeah.
was done, and I talked with her all the way through to the end. It is. I do agree. It's the one of the easier options in terms of if you have to make a decision. She asks you to do it. I can see why someone would. What the counter argument here would likely be, if you are killing the last human alive, we are now accepting the idea that humanity lives on in the Ark. It's and not that even that Sarah could do anything about that.
That's the thing. It's done.
That's the thing. It's done.
It's a formality.
Humanity
at
is
this point.
done. Yeah, exactly. But I guess it's just, it is a formality, and it's just kind of I am formally deciding humanity is done.
Mm-hmm.
We are now moving on in the Ark, right? And so it's kind of you're making that choice, whereas I guess maybe some people couldn't make that choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, this is what humanity is, and my brain scan in that machine isn't me, so I could see why someone would think that. But this for me was a clear cut answer where it's just no, she asked me to do this and she doesn't want to be alive anymore. So go for it.
Yeah, same thing, same reasonings. She asked me to. I stayed there for it. It seemed like the correct thing to do for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, as you said, Travis, I feel like the only argument the other way would be as if nothing that's happened until now has been by people, and she's the only person that's ever shown up. That we're a machine, our conscience doesn't count, the Ark doesn't count, all this stuff. But I think if you felt that way, I don't know if the game really worked that well for you to that point, because the game really wants you to feel that way. If you were like, nah, this doesn't matter, blah blah blah, I don't know if it would work.
Yeah.
If the game would be working for you at this point, because this whole thing has been continually questioning. What is a person? What makes you a person? Is it a mind? Is it a body? Is it agency? Is it, whatever? Which has been great. I'm glad they've pushed this. And then through a different element of there's a physical body. And she also has a mind. She's not incoherent. She knows what she wants, and we can accept that for her or make help her choice happen, I guess. So I did the same thing. It looks like feedback is by and large same mode. Justin on Twitter wrote in and said, I did, yes, some of the choices in this game. Oof. Definitely. Lots of tough stuff. Jacob, our friend, wrote in and said yes as well, that he killed her off too.
Murderer.
Celeste on Twitter says yes. Emotional Support Viking on Twitter said yes. Ping on Reddit said, I killed Sarah as well. Her life was horrible, and it was her clear wish to die.
Fight Me on Reddit says, I killed Sarah since being able to return to her would be unlikely, and people from the surface would not be able to get down here for decades, potentially centuries, if they did survive in bunkers. The staff of the space station had been starving for some time, according to data buffers, so I did not think there would be any reliable food sources either. Yeah.
Well
Makes sense. And then, yeah, definitely. And then Fanham on Reddit said didn't kill Sarah off either. And then they gave some spoiler thoughts, which I didn't put in here, but they talk about the end of the game. So, I wish I would have wrote them down. They were good thoughts. Maybe I'll find a way to post them somewhere later. But they did have, I think, a good argument for it. But it went into how the rest of the game goes, so I didn't want to spoil that early. So I cut them off. But it wasn't universal, and they did have some thoughts there. Okay, from here, we have the arc. We let Sarah die, take her off life support, and we head down to Alpha Station. So we send the Ark down Alpha Station on like a conveyor belt type of thing, and we follow for a little while to go over to I guess directions, whatever. It goes down a tunnel from Tal to Alpha Station. It goes through Alpha Station to ultimately get to the Phi Station where it can be shot off. But we can't follow the arc partway down the tunnel. There's a bunch of debris. You find a crushed person. It's a mess. You can't continue, but the arc is able to go overhead. So you end up going out a hole in the wall back into the ocean floor to kind of continue on foot again. And while you're on foot, you end up following these lampposts that are green. I think there's green ones going one way and red ones going another way to two different sites. And you have to follow them, and you need to stay in the light because there's monsters down there that will attack you if you go too far away.
I can't even imagine what this was like on normal mode because I was terrified the entire time, and it was so unclear, and it was so like windy, but you're at the bottom of the ocean. And oh my God, I can't even imagine. I don't know if I would have been able to do this section.
Okay, you know what? My kind of concession to not being able to switch it to safe mode, because I was just like, I don't know. I didn't really like how the gameplay was. It wasn't fun. It was kind of a chore. I was like, I don't really like having to hide from these monsters just the way the stealth mode is set up. So I was like, can I switch it to to safe mode? I couldn't. I was like, oh crap. So probably at least the second half of this game, I followed an online guide because it took a bit of the stress away. I knew when there would be a monster around. I kind of knew the general strategy to avoid them. It made it feel much better, and I could kind of enjoy the story and the lore a bit better. So that was kind of my strategy for playing. So that whole section was like basically the online guide was like, hey, just stick close to the lights and you'll be fine. I was like, oh my cool. God. So I just watched the like monsters swim by me, I think just like you did, and nothing ever. There's one section near the end where they kind of attack you and you're just kind of I'm limping my ass there because you can kind of take two hits. Basically two hits, generally speaking, before you're actually killed. So I'm like, oh, I took a hit. Oh, I took another hit. I'm like, I'm just limping my raggedy ass all the way there. But yeah, no, I used a guide for a good portion of this game.
Yeah, it made sense. I would have too if, like, just in order to get through, I would have if I needed it.
Because the gameplay is not fun, and also it was just frustrating because it's not always very clear of where you need to go. So I'm like, if I'm stressed out and I'm trying to run from these guys and I don't know where to go, then I'm just like, I don't want to play this. It's not fun in any function. So the guide helped a lot for sure.
Yeah, having safe mode meant that like I could explore and feel fine
there's
exploring,
no exploring,
but still
be
be creepy. Like things were still creepy, and so it didn't matter that I didn't know exactly where to go because I would find my way eventually and find out where I was going without having to like be running and hiding all the time.
I didn't want to die 8 times in a row. And so
no, totally. What were the checkpoints like for you when you did die? Did you get sent back too far, or was it
depends.
pretty
I
decent?
think it'd be consistent with you guys because it kind of has that little brain symbol in the bottom corner when it checkpoints.
Oh, when it like loads. Okay.
Yeah. So it wouldn't send you back too far, but like any section where there'd be a monster, you'd kind of go back to the beginning of that section.
Gotcha.
So
okay, that's good to know because same as Travis is like if I got lost, I'd be off course for a bit, and then I'd pull up a guide here and there if I'm like, all right, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? Like I feel like I'm just looking at crap for a long time and it's not helpful or something. But that was kind of my experience too. But okay, so you follow the lights and you make it to Alpha Station. And at Alpha Station, you're encouraged by Johann Ross to kill WoW, because the elements that are part of you are somehow different enough from WoW that you could kill WoW, and WoW won't be able to control Pathos. And WoW is essentially like Skynet, I guess, is how I picture it.
Yeah, totally.
Goopy Skynet.
Goopy Skynet has kind of. That's why there's so many like insane robots, all of that stuff. And so Johann Ross is like, you got to kill this on your way to shooting the Ark, and you're like, all right, that makes sense to me. So what you do is you shove your arm into the heart of WoW. I guess also along the way, there are, I think these give health.
Yes, I think so too.
And they're this weird like goopy hole, and you shove your arm into it, and it like bites you. And it restores your health somehow as you're like part of WoW, like the bigger entity, I guess. But in this case, you do that so that it'll bite you, and it will infect itself with the stuff that's in you that will make WoW not work, ultimately, I guess. And so you shove your hand in there, and it bites your hand off. Like, normally it just goops around you for a second, and then you pull it out and kind of continue on. But this time, it just bites your hand off, and you're like walking around without a hand after this. I guess there's a way you can restore it. I didn't, because I was like, I'm going in the Ark, so I stayed with no hand.
Yeah, I would say this was probably the part of the story that I was a little bit more confused about. Like, I didn't understand how we suddenly became... From what I gathered from what he was saying is that the structure gel that we used to create our new power suit body was infected in some way to become like venom to the WoW. And I didn't totally grasp that. And maybe I would have needed like maybe another like computer explaining something about that structure gel before we took it. Or maybe I missed something. I don't know. But I did like, I guess you can, I did read that you can just walk away and not kill it.
Really?
Yeah, you could just walk away to the next door and just keep going if you wanted to, which is interesting. And because, I mean, ultimately what the WoW was like this sentient AI that was supposed to protect the people on Pathos 2. And when the comet hit, it essentially kind of short-circuited the WoW a little bit in a way that made its prime directive to save humanity. And it kind of, its view of what humanity was maybe a little skewed. Like, does, you know, some zombie-like human walking around like that's being mobile and has brainwave function, does that count as an alive human? Does putting a brain scan inside of a robot count as an alive human? Because it does come to, you find out that like all of the brain scans that were done in the Ark were copied by the WoW and put into robots. And that's what you were dealing with in most of Pathos 2 and all the monsters. So the idea of like not killing it is interesting to me, because I guess if you do kill it, are you then killing off all of those doubled brain scans that are technically alive? Like, you know, I guess by infecting the WoW and killing it, you've now killed Amy, who you might have kept alive, or you've killed, you know, anyone else that you maybe was being supported through the WoW. I mean, obviously that's not like an actual life. Like, those aren't people. They're existing, but they're not living, right? So, I mean, obviously, like, yeah, I killed it and I did what I needed to do, but I guess there is a means of just leaving and not making that decision if you didn't want to, which is interesting.
It feels so detached from everybody that you've come in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, I don't know, the WoW feels so like hostile and like malignant that it's not. It feels like far less human than any of the humans or robots that you've come into contact with. So, like, I don't know. I didn't feel any ethical issues about destroying the WoW, especially when like the goal is to send up the Ark that has all of these consciousnesses uploaded. So yeah, I don't know. I was fine with that.
Yeah, I guess the idea is that like, does what the WoW has created, is that now, could you consider that life?
Totally. And that's
right?
like new life springing up where there
Right,
was
like,
no life, and like life finding a way, like to quote Jurassic Park, as finding a way in this new area of this is how we exist now. And like, as far as like life not being purely what we
think it is
conceptualize it as, right? As opposed to
is it our choice to
existence.
be able to should it be our choice to decide this doesn't constitute as life?
Exactly.
And I think that's where the question is who am I to say, if I'm deciding that like a brain scan in a computer is life, why can't what the WoW is doing
I think
also
it was
be considered
how it was
life?
presented.
Yes,
too.
it's presented
within
definitely
the
as
game
like
that it didn't bother me. It felt very hostile. So I was like, no, I need to get rid of it.
Maybe the game needed to provide you with a little bit more counter argument, like
a
maybe
little more
leading up to it.
context. Yeah, for sure.
So that way it became more of a decision, because I feel like the default choice was to I'm going to get rid of this thing.
Yeah, it didn't occur to me that I wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
No, right. Yeah, I feel like the way Johan Ross presents it to you, it seemed like you were doing kind of a solid on your way out. Like, cool, I'm gonna help whatever's left of Earth by getting rid of the WoW. Then I'm gonna go to space, and that'll be cool. Like that's what it sort of felt like, and so I didn't really question that. But yeah, that brings up a good question, a good debate. I wonder if we would have had maybe Catherine say something a little otherwise, or something before Johan Ross gave us this pitch. That would have been interesting. But afterwards, if you do it, and I assume if you don't, the same thing happens.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, Johan Ross tries to kill you, because his thought is, okay, you've poisoned the WoW, I'm going to kill you so it can't use you to adapt to the poison you've done. And you're about to kill it, but then a giant monster comes and kills Johan Ross, and you just book it out of the room, and you're like, all right, fuck, I gotta go to Site Phi. I gotta get out of here. You run away on foot. You again follow the lamppost again, and you end up at Phi Station. You get to Phi Station, and you load the Ark into essentially like a big turret gun looking thing to just shoot it off into space.
Big space gun.
Yeah, exactly. Big space gun. And you do. You shoot it off. And you're with Catherine, and you're like, have that sort of that countdown moment. Like, all right, we're going to shoot this off, and we're going to be in space. The coin flip happens.
Yeah, where you're going to
and it doesn't go the way you want.
Yeah, you're uploading at like the last second. And you're like, oh, and you're watching this meter count up. And then it finally, like old school downloads. Back in the day when downloads were not fast, when you're like, we're still at 60%, and we're just sitting there, and you're like, but there's only like 5 seconds left. How is this going to happen? And then it, you load up at the last second, and it shoots off, and then you're like, okay, and I think the screen kind of like whites out a bit, and then it comes back, and you're like, we're still here. And then Simon, I think appropriately, is like, what the hell? He's like, why didn't it work? And then Catherine's like, no, it's great. It worked. We did the thing. We uploaded into the Ark and we shut it off. Like, this is great. Celebrate. And he's like, why am I still here? Because up till now, you've only experienced being on the right side of the coin flip. And he's like, but I'm here. He's like, I should be on the Ark. She's like, yeah, you are. We're on the Ark. Like, we did it. And he's like, no, I'm here. We're both here. What the hell? And he freaks out and starts just swearing at her, and like, you lied to me and all this stuff, and we're still here. And it's like, and I get it. That sucks, because he expects to be like, no, this whole thing, the entire goal of this entire game, which kind of builds up to this moment, is like, the goal was to fire off the Ark, and you are preserving humanity, and we're going to be in the Ark, and everything's great. And he's just there. And yeah, it's in that initial moment, he doesn't accept that, like, that he accomplished the goal. He's like, no, but what about me? Like, what about us? We're just here. We're just here, and we didn't do the thing.
This was just such a great
oh my
moment.
God, it's such a good moment. This is video games.
Good.
This is why video games is a great medium.
Literally, like, you're sending off the arc. She's tied the upload with the launch button, so you got the countdown, and it's getting ready, and you're stressed, and you're like, is it going to work? Is it going to work? Like, oh, Catherine's in. Okay, is it going to work? And it works. Then, and that's the thing. It's not even like, the it's like the wool being pulled like off of your eyes, and you finally understand. It's like, no, Catherine was telling, like,
this is an expected outcome.
Yeah,
this is a
the
perfectly
expected outcome.
Yes, this is an acceptable thing that might happen.
Exactly. And then you kind of realize, like, oh, this is the other side of it.
Yeah.
And it's so well done. Like the delivery and the execution of this moment is just so well done. It blew my mind, because I was like, well, of course, this makes total sense.
It's gonna happen.
Oh, the devastation of your hope not realized, like what you thought it was as Simon, and then he just freaks the fuck out, and he's like, you promised this, we did this, we killed everything across Pathos 2 for this, and then I'm stuck in this fucking room by myself. Like, he's so upset, and you, like, just how much your hope went wrong, kind of thing, which was great. I wondered for a minute it didn't let you, which I'm glad it didn't, but Catherine uploads, and I was like, do I need to, like, unupload myself to let it get off? Like, should I do that? Or should I, like, risk it? Because I wondered if there would be a part where it's like, okay, just don't send me.
But they do both send. That's the thing.
Yeah,
like,
they do both send. I wondered if that would be a thing, though.
Yeah.
If you'd have to choose, like, can the arc go, and I stay behind, or do I risk that no one goes? Like, I thought they were going to push that.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to push that, which would have been cool. But I really like what we got, because you were like, I feel fucked over. And leaving Simon with that. And then as he's, like, berating Catherine for it going wrong, Catherine short circuits, and then he's just alone at the bottom of the sea, and you're like,
that's the thing.
This is so fucking mean.
Because Catherine
awesome.
finally has enough. Like, that's the thing. She's like, I am not lying to you. I've been telling you we did what we needed to do. And Catherine, like, has it up to here. Like, she's had it, and she short circuits out of just, like, pure frustration or anger of, like, him not grasping the concept. She's like, I don't want to explain this to you again.
Yeah.
Like, we did it. And, like, she was fine knowing that this was going to be the outcome. She knew and understood that this is what she wanted to do, and that she lives on, and this is her outcome.
But that's kind of the issue, right? Is like, are you actually living on? Would you be like, oh, there's another me out there, and they're me, and you'd be like, no, I'm me, and which is what he says. I think he states at one point is like, she's like, no, we're up there, and he's like, that's not us. We're us. Like, we are not up there. Like, we're here. Which is how you would feel. You're like, well, that's not me, though. That's a copy of me living a different set of experiences from what I'm experiencing right now. So is it really me? Like, I don't think I would think it was. I would be like, no, so that's a different person from myself.
Because you literally just did this with your own copy.
Yes.
Like,
whereas you would have been better just killing yourself right away, which is why I'm like, they were probably right to just off themselves instantly.
That's the thing.
After
You
the
literally just did this, where you continued on, and you left a version of you behind. Only in this case, it doesn't benefit you, like you, as opposed to like the other you. You know, like he couldn't grasp that concept. Which, I mean, who wouldn't? You're obviously
that's just natural. That is human.
That is your
perception.
That's your perspective. Yeah,
and it's just like self-preservation, right? Like you have this that need for self-preservation, and conceptually you've preserved yourself, but like animalistically, like, no, you didn't. Like, I'm here and I'm gonna die here, and
Catherine's detached enough from her humanity to like know the difference and to like accept and understand
she seems
that
to be,
she's detached enough from it.
That, for sure.
And Simon was in 2015, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know any different. I mean, technically speaking, he was just an old scan from 2015 that was uploaded into a computer to continue to do this in the first place, right? Like, but that's all his knowledge was at this point. The real Simon died hundreds of years ago. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's not even the real Simon in the first place, if we're going to consider what's the real Simon.
He might be a second Simon. Who the hell knows?
He already was. Because his original Simon continued living.
Yes. Yeah, and died
there's
Right.
like a
a
log.
few years later. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Right.
his original body continued living.
Yeah.
He is that original scan as a legacy series or something along those lines, where he's just been
Right.
held on because he said he consented to like being used for medical research, and he just became kind of like the baseline for all of these brain scan
Yeah.
things. He kind of just became the like wildly used brain scan for people. So it's super
Right.
interesting.
Right. He became like the demo. that
Yeah,
comes
he
with
pretty
the,
much was the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes with the product or whatever, which is, yeah.
I like that Catherine kind of called him dumb, more or less, too, because she's like, yeah, you're like a legacy scan. And he's like, what does that mean? She's like, you're a little flatter. Like, she was like, like she said, like, his brain waves were a little flatter, like, more or less being like, you're a little simple.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Yeah.
It's okay. We fixed it since we did you. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you get left with devastation. Feel bad, heart wrenched, brutal. Credits roll. But if you stick around, there's a post credit scene, and it's Simon in the Ark. You get up, you like walk out of this cave, and it's bright, it's green, it's totally different from anything we've seen this whole game.
Yeah. It looks like a
and
national park,
it-
more or less. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's super nice. It feels good. Like after how gross and bad this game felt, being at the bottom of the sea in the dark with crazy things and all that. It's nice. And you walk out, and there's a terminal up there, and you take the same survey that you took at the beginning of the game of, do you think that this is a continuation of you or not? Do you feel better about this? Would you like to be eliminated? You know, all that stuff. And I imagine we had similar experiences again, but I answered those all far more positively after going through this. And I was like, yeah, I guess it is still me. And I think I am in a better place than I was. And like, I'm glad to be a part of the Ark sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that when you're in an environment that feels more true to life, it felt more natural and you felt less foreign, which also I thought was super interesting, is that it felt like it tied there's a conversation at some point within this game about how your identity and your sense of being is attached to like your location and like the people that you know and your family. Like he talks about that a lot of his identity was tied to Toronto, and it grounded him in some way. And it kind of brought me back to that, whereas while you were running around Theta and, you know, Alpha and all that stuff, it was super foreign feeling, and everything was strange, and there's like, you know, there's dark goop trickling from the ceiling, and there was like robots running around trying to kill you, and you're like, and in that survey I was still kind of in the middle, like I wasn't full out everything feels terrible and I'm not myself, but I was still kind of more middling, whereas now in an environment that was a lot brighter and it felt more like something I had experienced, and it felt more human, for lack of a better word. My survey answers were a lot more positive, and I was like, oh, and I knew it as I was answering them, but I was like, no, but that's the truth. Like that is how I feel at this present moment, as opposed to how I felt answering the survey earlier.
Yeah. I same thing. I had like and my answers were quick. I was just like, yeah, I feel great. Yeah. I'm okay. Like, you know, it was just I didn't give it a second thought, because I don't know. It's just it was interesting to me because I think there's a question about like, this life feels like a direct continuation of my
or
previous
it felt like
life
a reset,
or something,
or like a fresh start. I think I picked fresh start.
So the previous survey, I definitely felt like I feel disjointed. I don't feel connected to my previous self. This one was like, oh no, like I feel like this is the continuation of myself now. I had those experiences and I know how I got here and I know where I'm going. Whereas last time I didn't know how I got there and I didn't know where I was going. And that didn't help me feel like I had continuity with my knowledge and my story and my previous memories and stuff, right? So I think that also helped in a sense that like, okay, this is where I am now, right?
Yeah. I also felt that, okay, when it first started, I was like, oh, I get what they're doing, but I don't feel like this is necessary. Like, it felt super incongruous with the rest of the game that I would, because the rest of the game is a direct continuation of your consciousness. Right?
Mhm.
It's like the same Simon throughout, and it's like what's happening to him. Whether
Yeah,
he
you
is
keep
the right
winning
copy
that coin flip.
or he loses the coin flip, and it's the end.
No, but like us as I guess us on we keep seeing
the same Simon.
Yeah, the player is the side that wins that coin flip. Like
yes, or at the end when he loses the coin flip and you are not in the arc. Either way.
Yeah.
But
like you won that coin flip in that is you.
Yes.
Yeah, that is your continued experience. Yeah.
Whereas the arc is like, oh, now we're the other Simon, who is different from us as the player, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that because I didn't feel like it was needed. Because I was like, no, the game is one consciousness, like for better or for worse, like front to back. But so I was like, I don't need to do this. And then once I got to the terminal, I was like, oh no, this serves a purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah,
because once I was giving those answers and it was different from my previous, I was like, oh no, it's making me think about things differently and making me perceive the game differently, or just in general, making me think about themes and all that I was like, oh no, this served a purpose and I'm okay with it existing.
Yeah, I thought it was good too in that, like, as a post-credit scene, I think it was good to hide it behind that because the experience,
extra,
right? Yeah. It's extra. You're left with the brutality. This game could be a total downer. You got fucked. It's over. But then you get this post-credit of hope, and it makes you reflect on what we've talked about, the stuff we've learned of maybe that is still me, and, you know, maybe I did get out of this all right. Maybe a good thing happened to me. Maybe I'm happier in the arc now kind of feel. And that's kind of cool. I like totally going into this game. I think I would have been a lot harder on the, like, when I started, like, are you really you? I don't know. But after going through this, I'm like, maybe you are. Like, it does seem like Simon in the arc, like, he made it. That's a cool thing that happened. So, I mean, good job, Soma, making me think about these things and challenge thoughts I had beforehand.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I think I would have loved? If, as a mid-credit scene, if you hadn't killed Simon 2,
oh my
you
God,
experiencing the wake up, being alone there as well. I mean, not to like, you already end being alone, you know what I mean? But if we're going to say the game was a continuity of one
and then you're visiting different Simons throughout the credits.
Exactly. Those are the other.
Oh my God.
Those are the other thoughts, right? Could you imagine? And even going back to like after the scan with David Munchie or whatever, and just being like, okay, now we're done. And like that was the continuation of that thought. And then the continuation of Simon 2's thought. And then seeing the arc Simon.
Yes.
That would have been like a complete mindfuck.
You just blew my mind.
Yeah.
That would
Could you imagine?
That would be fucking cool.
Yeah.
I like have a physical reaction to that. Like, I feel like I'm getting some chills. I'm like, that'd be so fucking cool.
Yeah, like
to just be
a post scan, a mid if you spared Simon scan one, and then then an arc Simon.
Because if our game is going to be the one Simon's continuity,
and then the credits
that we
are
following,
exploring these other Simons,
the other Simon continuities that we didn't see,
totally,
right? Because they gave us the arc one that wasn't our continuity, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes, I love that.
It's like a little bonus at the end, but like, yeah, the idea of maybe seeing that other Simon wake up and being like, yeah, these guys still go on,
especially since we're already doing it with the arc one.
Yes,
absolutely,
exactly. We're already doing it with the arc one. Yeah, I would have maybe liked to have seen that. I think that would have been kind of devastating.
Look at you, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I really like your rewrite. That would be great. And I guess even if you killed them, if you just showed them dead, and they're like, yeah, they're still dead. You did that. You were part of this. Like,
totally.
Yeah.
I feel like you could shame us on the way out too if you wanted. Like, that's totally cool. I think that'd be all right. But okay, so we have this experience. We take the survey, and then we walk up and we see Catherine in human form, and you like go to talk to her. Then game's officially over. So I don't know, you get to meet your friend in real life now, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, so to speak.
Yeah, in the arc. So that is Soma. We've said a lot of things about it. And so now we'll kind of move into general thoughts. A lot of the things we've talked about that I had thought of ahead of time have come up through our discussion. I feel like we've hit up a lot of things, but I think one brief comment I would make is I would be into more horror games that have safe modes like this.
Yeah.
This was really helpful for me to be able to enjoy content like this, and I would want to do it more. So if people know about them, please send them my way. I would love to play more horror games in safe mode to be able to experience the scares, but not get stuck by them, I guess. And then we mentioned earlier, too, Jacob has an episode on Left Behind Game Club about this. Definitely go check that out as well. I'm looking forward to listening to that after this as well. I think it was also one of their episodes where they went long. I saw it was way longer than normal. So I think they had an experience like us as well, where they really got into it. So that's cool. I'm excited to see what they have to say. Yeah, that's really all I've got. I feel like we've debated a lot if you're a person or not.
That's good someone else went along, because I was like, I knew it going in. I texted Travis, I was like, this is going to be a long, really long pod. I know it is.
There's too much to say.
There's too much.
There is.
Yeah. So I'll just touch on a couple things. So I just want to, obviously, I got a lot out of this game. But again, gameplay, not that great. I think they could have shaved a couple hours off, and it would have been the same experience. Like, I don't think I would have lost anything from, like, just cutting it down a little bit. And also, if the areas were very similar, I feel like we could have differentiated the areas a little bit more. If you insist on keeping it that long, then maybe mix things up a little bit and like make the different stations a bit more different than they were, because they were very similar. So yeah, those are my critiques. But what else? Any critiques, Travis, before I get into my general thoughts?
I don't think so. Like, I agree with Dan that, like, I think I would play another horror game if the fear of... It's funny because, like, I'm scared of being scared. I don't want the jump scare, but I do want the jump scare. And, like, I want the monster to chase me, but I don't want it to catch me. Like,
live by the sword, die by the sword. You know?
Yeah.
So, like, it's interesting. I don't know. I like the sensation and the feeling of being, like, tense and scared, but I get such, like, paralysis when it comes to actually acting, that the idea of, like, a safe mode just to, like, kind of explore, I actually really, really would be into for other horror games. Otherwise, no, like, I really liked this game. It's, like, right up my alley, and it had so much I think we covered all the kind of topics that we more or less I thought we would end up covering, so I don't know if I have very much more.
I have a couple general thoughts. So, thought that crossed my mind was the idea that because initially I was like, well, we're putting all of our consciousnesses into the arc and shooting into space, and it's basically like a giant duffel bag sized item that we're just firing into space. And I was like, well, that feels very fragile, and it feels very, like, insubstantial to hold all of our consciousnesses. Like, I was like, well, does this mean anything? But then literally the visual of the ark flying by Earth that is being destroyed, that I was like, oh, well, the Earth held all of our consciousnesses, and it's much larger than the ark, and it is being destroyed. Like, it doesn't matter. So, like, does the vehicle matter that much? I guess it doesn't, although initially I thought it did.
That's a really interesting, like, juxtaposition of, like, the two things. Like, I didn't even think of that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that kind of threw me off.
That's cool.
What else? I got a couple other things. I think a couple other things. I thought it would have been really cool if when you shift into the new body in the person in the, I don't know, the diver suit or whatever it's called, the Big Daddy, if somehow if you had moved differently. or if something had been different
Oh,
about
yeah.
about how you moved,
yeah.
so that it felt like it was a different body, I thought that would have been really cool. Not
Right.
necessary. It got its point across still, but I was like, oh, I feel the exact same moving around. So it kind of felt like nothing happened.
I mean, technical standpoint is just much easier, I'm sure, making the game that way,
Totally.
right?
I'm not a game
But
developer.
I think there's an kind of an in-game explanation that could actually work for why it wouldn't. And it's kind of, Catherine kind of talked about, or at least something talked about how like you kind of saw your hands as being normal hands at one point.
That's
And
true, actually.
You don't sense that you are in a robot suit because your brain is coping.
Yeah, it kind
And
of
you
covers up
don't-
the abnormalities. Yeah.
Exactly. So like that's why like Carl thought he was like, no, I need a medic, and he's like a robot with like big claws,
you're
right?
right.
And your body is just like superimposing the same motions and thoughts onto the new body that you have. And if you thought too hard about it, you'd probably go crazy.
Yeah.
And so as a like a
Yeah.
no prize for explaining away your thing there is like, well, you probably wouldn't have noticed the difference because your brain needed to cope with the change.
I like that a lot.
And there
See,
you go.
this-
Yeah, that's a smart
This
explanation.
is why I bring you places with me.
Okay.
This is great. Okay, my last thought is this game I felt like really reiterated to me why video games are a fantastic medium that can do something that no other place can, that no other medium can. Whereas, I don't know if people have seen, it brought to mind The Prestige, the movie.
Yes.
Prestige.
Mhm.
Spoilers, if you haven't seen it, skip ahead a couple minutes. I don't know. I'm going to kick in. Basically, he's like, Hugh Jackman is a magician, and he's trying to come up with the best trick. And basically, he is, in the process to do this trick, he is making a copy of himself using this technology, whatever. And the new copy is being killed in this like tank of water each time because there can be only one person. Like there can't be two copies at the same time. And when that happens, and when that reveal happens, that you're like, oh, that's how he's doing this trick. He's making a copy and killing the new one that appears. You're like, oh, that's happening to him. That's messed up, and how he must feel about that when that happens. But when you're playing this game and you are the new you and you're looking at old Simon, you feel like you're looking at old you.
Yeah.
Which it can't be like done in another medium. Like you can't do
No.
that in movies or books or anything where you're like, oh, that's me. That was me.
Because you can't experience it. You'd be watching it as a
Yes.
voyeur, right?
Exactly.
Like when you're watching
Whereas
a
you're
movie
like, no,
here,
I
you get to, like,
sat in that chair.
experience it.
And that's old
Yeah.
me. And am I gonna kill old me? So it was a nice thing to be like, oh yeah, this is why video games are unique in like art. And that was
Love
how I
it.
felt.
No, like spot on. You're totally right.
Thanks, man.
Right.
This is why I bring you places.
Thanks.
Yeah, I totally agree. It really bridges that of that you are a part of this way more than if you observed it. Like even if you watched like a Let's Play of this, it wouldn't be the same as
totally.
playing it yourself. Right. It would be, if you watched a Let's Play, you would be like, oh, that guy's morality who's playing this, or in the movie when you see the character do it. But you being a part of this and having to wrestle with all of these things. Yeah, totally agree. It really sets that, video game is art, which is cool. Sweet. Was that your last general thought
That's
you had?
it. I'm done talking. I've
Perfect.
talked a lot.
No, you're good. I feel like you brought up a lot of good stuff through here, so this is great. Travis, did you have any other
No,
general
I think
thoughts
we
you wanted?
covered like everything that I thought of. I loved the discussion that we had. This was great. It
Perfect.
was really, really good.
Awesome. That's great. Cool. Well, we've got a little bit of listener feedback to wrap us up,
Yeah.
and then we'll have done it. We'll have solved consciousness with Soma together. So that's really great. We did it, guys. Okay, so first up, we've got Thomas on Twitter who said, it left me with a feeling of sadness. To face our individual mortality is one thing, but to present when we die as a species, it shakes you to the core. especially when you realize that there are way worse fates than death. And yet, by the end of it, it also provides some hope. Yeah, that's really big. We didn't talk about it a lot, but I think just the humanity being dead above the surface, probably.
Yeah, kind of nuts.
That is, yeah, it's kind of nuts. Like, and we didn't really deal with philosophical problems with that or issues as in our discussion or even as the character, but like that's a lot too. Like it mostly added to like crazy context for our environment. Like, oh, also there's nothing else here, but that's crazy. Like this is all a pretty devastating situation. Also, Tom on Twitter said they played through this 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
Each time I've come away with it with an immense feeling of dread and despondency. Fuck that ending. Good scares, great story, all around solid production. Yeah. Ending's brutal, great story.
Agree with all that. Justin on Twitter says, excellent story, great setting, a game that stuck with me for a long time, that I still occasionally watch parts of, especially the ending, on YouTube 5+ years later. That's the thing, when it sticks with you that long, that's impressive. And Celeste on Twitter says, the game moved me tremendously and made me question my morals. Also plugged a podcast episode they did on it. I don't know what that means.
They put a link in their comment of they did a podcast on this game as well.
You saying that. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that was my note, not Celeste. She put a link to it. So on Twitter, you can find it.
Yeah.
It's there in the comments.
If you go see Celeste's Twitter profile, they plugged a podcast episode they did on it. All right, Travis?
Yes.
So Emotional Support Viking on Twitter says, one of the strongest narrative experiences I have had with a game. The horror elements combined with an extremely humane and nostalgic tone was incredible. Don't miss out if you appreciate immersive games that will live on in your mind for a good while afterwards. Strongly agree. Like literally, I don't think this game has just been in my brain.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it
on the back burner since I finished playing. It just doesn't want to go away yet. Which I'm okay with. I like that it's making me think. And then Fight Me on Reddit says, as a non-horror game player, this game was a godsend since I got to play the game and explore without constantly shitting my pants and dying going back very far. Very true. I agree.
Totally agree. We've got one final comment from Vanham on Reddit. It was a little bit longer, so I will get in that for us. So first they say, when you think about it, the Ark floating in space is not actually that great of an idea. The Ark has batteries, considering that they were kept on Earth for a year when the crew refused to launch it. What happens when the batteries are damaged? If it's designed to rely on solar panels alone when in space, what happens when the solar panels are blocked from light sources that extend for a period of time? What happens when the solar panels on the Ark get damaged? How will it get fixed? What if the Ark collides with a comet or meteorite? Then the Ark obviously has a limited amount of power that it can produce a limited amount of processing power. So despite the idea that the AI could be created to mimic children, the fact that there are limited amounts of resources means there is a capacity. What happens when they reach their capacity? The Ark, in my opinion, is simply a prolonged existence for a few individuals rather than humanity's continuity.
You know what? I would say that there isn't that much differentiation between the Ark and Earth. The Earth has, at some point,
a limited amount of resources.
We have a limited amount of resources. We are only going to live for so long. I don't know how long it's going to be. We'll see. But what happens if a meteor hits it? A meteor hit Earth, and that's why the Earth is gone. I again, that's what I dealt with, where I was like, well, that feels really insubstantial, and like it could end for any reason. But I mean, I guess so could the Earth. The Earth could end for any reason, I suppose. Like there's a multitude of reasons why we could just end. So
I guess you just kind of want hope. You just kind of hope that it works itself out.
The Earth feels more limitless. Like a planet feels more limitless than a giant duffel bag of machinery, I guess.
Right. I think that's what it is, because earlier when you brought up your point about the Earth, that it's had these bad things already happen to it. That's a really good point and a good other side. I think that just because it's a duffel bag in space, it feels vulnerable.
Yeah,
More
totally.
vulnerable. But it's like, Earth's already fucked up. Like, sure, it's bigger, but that doesn't mean that...
It's a smaller target.
Yeah, it can end too. Like,
Yeah.
it is a way
It can end
smaller.
too, and... Yeah, a smaller target. That's a good point. It's funny. They had one last comment too, more I think broadly outside of Soma. So they said, I was a big fan of Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which in my opinion was the best horror game I've played. It had an intense and horrifying experience I've had playing a game. Soma, however, despite being a good game by itself, wasn't nearly as scary as Amnesia. Enemies overall are not threatening. You are a lot less likely to die. You could take more hits from your enemy if you do die. The various checkpoints make it not punishing at all to die. The removal of inventory and resource management also makes it a lot less scary. You have a flashlight, which can be used at all times, which conveniently flickers when an enemy is nearby as a signal. You also don't have to search every corner of the map to not miss out on resources, so you can just run away from any areas where there's an enemy without facing trade-offs. The environment overall is well lit, and you can outrun enemies most of the time. I understand the dev wanted to make the game less scary and easier for players so they can focus on the story. However, that should be the purpose of the game's safe mode. For normal mode, make the game scary and tough. What I expect from a game from Frictional. Also, alternatively, give me a hard mode. So, a couple kind of thoughts on how it to be more scary or different. Since I don't think any of us have played Amnesia, I guess we don't have the experience of that being more scary, but it sounds like it is. I think that if it does not have a safe mode, then I certainly won't play it, because this was scary enough for me. Yeah. But they definitely have a more braveness than I do.
I thought the minimalism made it...
I could see that.
I thought the minimalism made it scarier, because I don't have like items to pick up, and like I feel like when I pick up things, it makes me feel better, and like I have things that are in my control, whereas I'm just me walking around, and like I just have to like pick a corner and look at the corner because I can't look at the enemy because they'll come and kill me. I felt like I didn't have any control at all over anything. So, I mean, again, generally speaking, the gameplay wasn't great. So I feel like if the gameplay was like better and more fully formed, it would be scarier. But I didn't feel like not picking things up made it less scary. I feel like it made it more, because I can't do anything. Like, there's nothing in my control. I'm just walking around.
So helpless.
Yeah. Super helpless.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that is Soma. We've done it. We've made it through the depths of the ocean floor, send our consciousness into space into your podcast app. So we did it. That's awesome. But yeah, I guess to wrap up, do you guys want to plug cutscenes, where people can find you online, all of that stuff?
Travis is pointing at me. I'll be brief, because this has been a very long, and I'm so sorry. Yeah, me and Travis and our friend Jacob have a podcast called Cutscenes, where we talk about video game movies. It's a lot of fun. You can find it at cutscenes.ca. And Cutscenes, a video game podcast, is available on all your major podcasting platforms. So, yeah, we banter, we have fun, we have a good time. Come check us out.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, go check them out. Everything will be linked. Thank you so much for coming on. This was really fun.
Yeah.
We talked about everything and more that I could have thought of, which was awesome. If you want to find our stuff online, our Twitter is at StoryEverPod. Talk to me about Soma. Talk to me about scary games with safe modes. I'd love to hear it. Our website's TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. That has access to all of our old episodes, including ones Travis and Katie have been on. Check those out. And please rate and review us on iTunes or whatever. That'd be super helpful. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. Check that out as well. And we will see you next time.